What's up, people? My name's Hatman, and this is the Night Flight. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Hope you all feeling good. Fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax. We're going to talk about boxing and whatever else you guys want to get into. First and foremost, we got Matt Borgerson in the chat. KD. We got Warner, Rich Franklin, Team Batman Boxing, Sizzler, Free Coffee, Southpaw, JR. You got Chris YG, KO Kid Boxing, KO Talk, Mark Odell, Simon Jones, Fish, CM. What's up, what's up, what's up? We got Matt Borgerson early with a super chat. He says that Jake Paul presser felt like the funniest thing I've seen. Is Joshua on drugs? YTF is Gareth Stinky there? Jake delusional, face off was golden. Big up the Place Boxing, big up Fernie G, big up President Brush. Yeah, I saw some of that press conference with AJ and Jake Paul. And AJ, despite what he's saying, that he fully respects Jake Paul and he doesn't see it as being an easy night's work, AJ's not normally that relaxed at press conferences. He's normally a bit robotic and edgy and, he's not normally that relaxed. People are saying his behavior seemed bizarre. Yeah, AJ's always bizarre, but just going by his body language, to me, it's clear that he fully believes that Jake Paul is a total novice and he's going to go in there and just do whatever he wants with him. Pause. And maybe he will, right? But I still think this whole weight limit situation is ill-advised for AJ to accept that. This is a guy that he should be making light work of. He doesn't need the fight. AJ's got loads of money, right? So why make any concessions at all that could compromise you physically? I just think it's a very silly decision from AJ, but there you go. It remains to be seen whether that affects him significantly or not. But yeah, I did see parts of that press conference. The face-off was weird. You know when Jake Paul was like staring at AJ's chest for about 10 seconds first? And then he finally looked up and looked AJ in the eye and that face-off went on for, a long time, and AJ looked away first. It was a weird face-off. Maybe Jake Paul was psyching himself up. Maybe he's seen some kind of sports psychologist or whatever, and he was getting his mind right before he looked into AJ's eyes. I don't know what it was, but that was weird. But it's to be expected, right? Because AJ's a weird guy. Jake Paul is a troll, an influencer, and whatnot. So you couldn't expect something normal. It was a little odd. KD says Jake Paul has lost his mind. Matt says Jake was terrified he needs help. Well, he's going to make an awful lot of money from this fight if it goes ahead. Enough money to afford all the help he needs. Huffy says he kept contradicting himself. He just wanted to control every conversation, even if it meant contradicting what he just said. Okay, Aaron Murphy says, Usyk versus Hrgovic fight due to be announced next week. I've been told on good account. I'm not sure how to feel about that if that turns out to be true. Big up Charles B. Usyk versus Hrgovic. I mean, Usyk has mandatories due. But if he can slot a voluntary in there, I wouldn't really begrudge him too much. Is Hrgovic the voluntary we're all clamoring for? Not really. But he's a solid guy. He's been a top 10 heavyweight for quite a while now. He's been in some high-profile fights. Okay, but it's a little odd that you would relinquish the WBO, not fight Fabio Wardley, and instead take on Hrgović. That will allow people to say it's a duck. And I can't make them wrong. I would pick Alexander Usyk to totally destroy Fabio Wardley, right? But a duck is a duck. If he's swerved Wardley to fight Hrgović, at least for the time being, it is what it is. Or maybe he just wants a break from beating up Brits. He wants to beat up a Croatian instead. What do you guys think about that if it turns out to be true? Big up Matt. He says Jake was terrified. He needs help, as I say. He's making a lot of money. He can afford all the help he needs. Big up betting related for the super chat. He says, Haney Norman prediction, bro. I was on that video. Big up Harold Protagonist. He says, AJ and Usyk camp, too late to do any good. So Haney Norman, originally I think I was picking Norman, but I'm kind of swaying towards Haney again now, because I think he's just going to do his usual hit and hop it routine. He's going to put those roller skates on and skate around the ring and stay out of trouble. I suspect it's going to be a stinker, actually. Haney versus Norman. So I'm going to go with Devin Haney. I've changed my mind. I was picking Brian Norman before, but I'm changing my mind now, and I'm going to say Devin Haney puts his roller skates on and jabs and moves his way to a points victory. Despite all the smack talk and the back and forth between the two camps, the last time Devin Haney stood his ground in the ring, he got traumatized by Ryan Garcia. And I don't think that's going to leave him. So I don't expect him to stand his ground in this fight. I think he's going to be, like I say, putting his roller skates on. And as for Harold Protagonist's question, AJ and Usyk camp too late to do any good. Well, the word from Eddie Hearn is that AJ is being pushed very, very hard in that Usyk camp. The idea is that AJ wasn't maybe being pushed by some of his more recent trainers because perhaps they didn't have the type of authority to be able to really tell AJ what's what. Ben Davison, for example, is younger than Anthony Joshua. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but make of that what you will. Eddie Hearn saying, I mean, he's going to spin it in a positive way, regardless. Even if AJ's not making any real improvements in the camp, or he's not benefiting much from being trained by Usyk's people, Eddie Hearn would still put a positive spin on it, because that's what promoters do. So it remains to be seen. I mean, obviously, this is not about the Jake Paul fight. This is about a potential Partridge fight next year. And it's logical that he would go to the team that were able to defeat Partridge twice, the Usyk team. But obviously, AJ fights nothing like Usyk. I don't necessarily think that in itself is too big of an issue, because I'm sure that team are extremely experienced in the old Eastern Bloc amateur system and pro game and whatnot. So they'll have dealt with guys of AJ's dimensions before and coached people like that before. Whether they're as good at coaching somebody like an AJ as they would be coaching a southpaw like Usyk remains to be seen, but I'm sure they've got plenty of experience with guys like AJ. And, a lot of those old Eastern Bloc guys, before the Usyks and Lomachenkos, they were very stiff, right? So maybe they'll know what to do with AJ's biomechanics. We'll see. I mean, it can't hurt at this stage, to be honest, because I think AJ's so far gone now. They say if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, well, as long as he's still a professional, you might as well try and fix it. What have you got to lose, right? He can't get much worse than his last performance. So big up Harold Protagonist. Big up Laughs. He says, watch the video of Jake with the cardboard cutout of AJ and you'll see it some sort of dare to him. I don't think Jake believes he can beat AJ. Okay, that's an interesting take. Maybe he doesn't believe he can beat AJ. Maybe he's just doing it for the money because it is a crazy payday. Maybe he's expecting perhaps a moral victory by going the distance. Maybe Jake Paul's going to get his skates on. He alluded to something like that at the press conference, right? That he's going to be too fast and he's going to be dancing and moving around. Maybe he's just looking to win a moral victory. Maybe that's the way he's going to spar, to run around the ring, stay out of trouble, and by lasting 8 rounds, he'll say, see, I managed to go 8 rounds with one of the best heavyweights in the world. So who knows, but big up for the super chat. We shall see. What do you guys think of the David Benavidez-Anthony Yarde fight? I did my video on it the other day. I think it's going to be a good fight. Anthony Yarde is going to give it a go, as he always does, right? Anthony Yarde always gives it a go. He gave it a real go against Kovalev. He gave it a go against Beterbiev. And I'm sure he'll give it a go here against Benavidez. And by the way, at the weigh-in, at the ceremonial weigh-in, I'm not sure if the real weigh-in was filmed or not. I don't know. But at the ceremonial weigh-in, Yarde looks enormous next to Benavidez. Yarde's always been a massive light heavyweight. But dear oh dear, he looked massive next to Benavidez, bro. Massive. Benavidez might walk around over 200 pounds, but he's a naturally chubby guy. Whereas Yarde walks around over 200 pounds and he's still solid. So Yarde is definitely the naturally bigger of the two. But I'm still picking Benavidez to win the fight because I don't think this fight will really be about physicality. Maybe early on, Yarde might be able to have some type of impact with that physicality of his. But as the fight wears on, I just think Benavidez's skill and his work rate, his stamina, is going to be the deciding factor. He's very skilled. He's a better boxer than Yarde. He's got better boxing skills. He's got a great jab. And if he gets that jab landed on Anthony Yarde, that's going to be the beginning of the end. So that's my take on the fight. For anyone who hasn't heard it before, big up Laughs, big up Dr. Blick. He says, do you have Devin winning tomorrow? Yes, I've changed my mind. Previously, I was leaning towards Brian Norman, but now I think Devin Haney's going to get his roller skates on, slide around the ring, stay out of trouble, and maybe take a decision. Big up Dr. Blick. Big up Matt Borgerson for the super chat. He says, I think Yarde can win. 3rd time's the charm. Obviously, stranger things have happened than Anthony Yarde beating a David Benavidez. But I don't know, I just think Benavidez is too skilled for him and too busy. Anthony Yarde is not a busy fighter. And because he's not busy, that leaves the door open for Benavidez to do what he does. Now, if Anthony Yarde had crazy punching power that could make Benavidez cautious, that would be able to neutralize the activity of Benavidez. But I don't think Yarde hits as hard as advertised. I'm not saying he's a pillow-fisted fighter, not at all. He's got decent power, but I don't think there's anything to write home about. I don't think Benavidez is going to get in there and feel, get the shock of his life as far as the punching power of Yarde. I really doubt it. So yeah, I got Benavidez outskilling and outworking Anthony Yarde and either winning a comfortable decision or stopping him late. But we'll see. Maybe Matt Borgerson will turn out to be correct and Anthony Yarde pulls off the upset. And by the way, this is incredible. The odds for Anthony Joshua, according to the guy that works for the Stomping Ground, not Charlie Parsnips, the other one, Oscar Bevis. According to Oscar Bevis, I haven't checked this myself, so make of it what you will. Oscar Bevis said that the betting odds for Benavidez versus Yarde are the same as the betting odds for AJ versus Jake Paul. That's crazy. That is crazy because Yarde has definitely got a much better chance against Benavidez than Jake Paul has against AJ. All things being equal, you know? But just to deviate from boxing for a second, you may or may not find this interesting. Right before I start a stream, I'm often watching something else on YouTube. And what I was watching right before I started this stream, let me just get the super chat first before I finish my thought. Big up Dr. Blick for the super chat. He says, what are your keys to victory for Brian Norman Jr.? Big up Liam Goff, aka G-Man in the chat. Keys to victory for Brian Norman Jr. will be to jump on Devin Haney early, because Devin Haney, to me, still looks traumatized by the Ryan Garcia fight. And when a guy is rattled psychologically like that, you don't want to allow him to get comfortable. You want to jump on him. You want to bring those demons back into his mind as quickly as possible. The thing is, Brian Norman is not really an out-and-out attacking fighter. Yeah, he scored some spectacular knockouts recently, but he's not normally an out-and-out attacking fighter. He's more of a boxer-puncher, as somebody was saying in my Element group. It's absolutely true. So he's going to need to fight a little bit out of character, I think, in the early going to try and put a dent in Devin Haney and give him flashbacks from that Garcia fight. If he stands off too much and tries to play a counter-punching game, that plays into Devin Haney's hands. So he's got to get on him. He's got to be aggressive. It's not like Haney's a big puncher, you know? So you can afford to take some risks and catch a few shots going in, but he needs to stamp his authority on Devin Haney. I think that's the key. Conversely, right, another way of trying to go about it would be to antagonize Haney or lull Haney into a false sense of security and get Haney to attack him. But one way or another, he needs to get Haney to engage with him. If Haney is able to keep his distance and start boxing and moving and all that, I'm not sure Brian Norman's going to catch up to him, you know. So, yeah, that's why I've kind of changed my mind, and I think maybe Haney's just going to get on his bike and do his Mo Farah impression, running the marathon. So, yeah, big up Dr. Blick. Shout out to Daniel for the super chases. Americans really think Jake has a chance. I think he really believes so too. Yeah, I think, as I've said before, Jake Paul is a casual. People tend to forget this. He's a casual. So, for example, when Eddie Hearn made the Canelo Alvarez-Dimitri Bivol fight, Jake Paul was trashing the fight. He was saying that Dimitri Bivol, nobody's heard of him, he can't fight, he's no good. He was basically making out that Bivol was a bum being fed to Canelo. Like, Jake Paul is a casual. He lives in that influencer world, that pop culture world, right? And that pop culture world doesn't know anything about boxing. So despite the fact that he has dedicated himself to boxing, and, you know, he's a professional and whatnot. He's knocked people out and so on and so forth. I don't know how many boxing people he really has around him on a daily. I think he more has a lot of backslappers and, you know, sycophants around him, as well as some of the more odd people within the American boxing fraternity, perhaps. And they don't rate AJ over in the United States. So maybe they've gassed his head up to such an extent that he believes he can win the fight. Or maybe, like someone else said previously, he doesn't really think he can win the fight, and he's just looking to go in there and get a moral victory by trying to last the distance for a load of money. He doesn't have an unbeaten record to protect anymore. Tommy Fury took that. So, we'll see. It's a weird one. Big up Daniel for the super chat. But yeah, to finish my thought, or actually to reveal to you what I was watching before I started this stream, because I do watch some random stuff. I was watching an interview with a guy who basically went on a DMT journey that lasted over a year. This guy said he was taking DMT every single day, or just about every day, and he was doing everything on it. He was going to work on it. He was going to the gym on it. I mean, as I understand it, a DMT trip only lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm not sure, I'm not sure how that really worked. But he said that he would go to the gym on DMT and he was doing all this stuff on DMT. And he was describing what the experience was like. And he said, after a while, when you're doing DMT that much, you basically start to see that there's a reality beyond our reality. So the experience when you're taking it regularly is different than the experience if you only take it once or once in a while. So, yeah, that's what I was watching before I started this live stream. A guy who said he was taking DMT damn near every day for over a year, studying his own consciousness and seeing what would happen. Big up atavistic intellect. Much respect, sir. Okay, Warner says, I listened to a trip story where two guys were seeing the same purple-blue woman in another realm. Big up John, he says, don't forget to hit the like button. That's right. If everyone can smash that like button like it's Sadiq Khan's face or Keir Starlin's face, it'd be really appreciated. Big up Anthony YouTube. JR says a lot of people think DMT unlocks the true reality. Maybe it does. I mean, I don't know. I'm agnostic on it. Yeah, that's right, Derek Clark. It's in the brain and in all living things. Charles B says, have you heard of saliva? You want to provide some context? Saliva is in what kind of saliva? Big up Charles B. Joshua Letty says, DMT is an easy way to be okay with mentally acknowledging yourself as a bum. I don't agree with that. I've never taken psychedelics myself, but I respect people who want to explore their subconscious to that extent, right? People are into psychedelics and they swear by them. And, historically, you look at, there are, certain scientists and technology people swear that they made particular discoveries because of their use of psychedelics, right? Steve Jobs being a good example. So I'm not into psychedelics myself, but I think that's a bit of a harsh comment, to be honest. Charles B says, oh, excuse me, I thought you said saliva. There's me being dyslexic. Sylvia, excuse me, it's a psychedelic. No, I haven't heard of it. Charles B says it's supposed to be insane. But yeah, there you go. I watched some strange things. So, a guy doing DMT for a whole year and documenting his experiences. That's the interview I was watching before we started this. Otto says, are you scared of psychedelics? Yes, I would say I'm scared of psychedelics. I don't want to do psychedelics. I'm scared of what I might do on psychedelics, to be honest. And psychedelics are definitely not for everyone, because some people do cross over into the dark side as a result of psychedelics. I've seen interviews of people who said that psychedelics ruin their lives and so on and so forth. And I intuitively feel like psychedelics ain't for me. Yeah, Matthias, apparently Austrian is in the system. Although some people reckon it's because He didn't want to fight on DAZN, so he was spiked. I'm not saying that, but you know, boxing fans are very skeptical. Taylor says you're on DMT if you think Jake Paul has more than a 2% chance of beating AJ. Charles B says, most people I know of taken psychedelics turn into oddballs. Okay, RF says, Hatman, do you think Benavidez has the same disturbed look in his eyes as Opataya? Noticed it with him, and it makes sense with their styles, of course. No, to me, he doesn't have the type of intensity in his eyes that Opataya does. There's a level of intensity there, but with Opataya, it's flipping psychopathic. I'm not saying he's a psychopath, but you know, he's got like that 100-yard stare. Jai Opataya. He's got the most intense stare in boxing, Opataya. I'm not sure what's up with him. Big up Josh Leddy for the super chat. He says, I won't take them in case it turns me into a guy who doesn't care about this reality that you're born into. Right, that's an interesting comment. Because you think about like mystics in places like India, their goal, right, is to do exactly that, to stop caring about this physical reality that we live in. As far as they're concerned, that's the key to happiness, to reach nirvana, as they call it. I believe that's in Hinduism, maybe in Buddhism as well, to reach nirvana. You have to detach yourself from this physical world completely. They see that as like the ultimate spiritual evolution. Big up Liam in Chains. Big up Josh Leddy. Liam in Chains says, did you see Haney's bodyguard pull the t-shirt over Norman's head? That was a few months ago, right? Or did he do it again recently? Derek says, I like oddballs. It's those who think they are normal that scare me. And me too, to some extent, but it depends how odd the oddballs are, right? Because some people are far too odd for me, bro. Like, they're disturbed odd. Big up Agni. He says Opataya is a lunatic. He's definitely got lunatic eyes, and as I always say when we mention Opataya, it's fortunate that professional boxing exists and that he found it. Because if professional boxing didn't exist, where would he be and what would he be doing? Do you know what I mean? A guy that naturally angry. Where would he be and what would he be doing? Jake Isaac says, hey Hatman, I hope you're well. I had a question regarding polygamous marriage. Is it fair to say that the children produced from different mothers would yield siblings that inherently hate each other? I think that probably all comes down to favoritism, right? Children tend to hate each other. It's not the only reason children hate each other, but one of the reasons can be envy, when they feel like one of the parents, usually the parent with the most power in the home, likes another sibling or prefers another sibling over them. That can cause envy and what have you. Is that more likely in a polygamous marriage? I don't know, to be honest. Maybe because of the number of children a polygamous marriage produces is going to be higher than a monogamous marriage. statistical probability perhaps would dictate that there's going to be more conflict between the kids. I mean, generally, you know, the bigger a family is, the more chance you're going to have siblings that don't get along. I come from a relatively big family, and indeed, I got siblings I don't speak to. So that can happen, right? Oh, wow. Matt Borgerson with a super chat says, Matias got stripped. Dalton Smith fight over. Somebody somebody posted the story in my Element group about Matias failing that PED test. And I said, well, Matias needs all the help he can get. Because for me, Matias has always been a very average fighter. I never was high on him at all. The first time I saw him, I was like, I'm not really impressed here. He just looked like a Puerto Rican version, a smaller Puerto Rican version of Bam Bam Rios or something. Or not smaller version. Bam Bam Rios is about the same size as Matias, actually. Like a Bam Bam Rios. Was Bam Bam Rios ever an amazing fighter? You know? I don't think Matias is even as good as Rios either. Hand of Doom says, Ike Ibeabuchi is the champion when it comes to being odd. That's a great example. You say you like odd people. Would you want to be in the company of Ike Ibeabuchi on a daily basis? Go over to his YouTube channel, bro. That guy's still not the full biscuit. I mean, he weren't the full biscuit when he went into the penitentiary. After 20 years in there, yeah, he's not going to be the full biscuit coming out, is he? If you weren't right going in. Big up Josh Leddy for the super chat. He says, Hatman, with my bro, please big up his granddad. Granddad Billy. Shout out to Granddad Billy from Hatman. Big up. Big up Granddad Billy every time. We got Mymar in the chat. YouTube is doing this weird thing again today. This happened many months ago where it's not giving people's normal usernames. It's like, it's giving the name that they signed up with rather than the username which you can edit. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why it's doing that. It's annoying. So some of the names look unfamiliar even though it's regulars. KOs from the 80s that you may have missed. Well, as it goes, on my original channel, I uploaded a video, which I think is still up, called 70 Brutal Knockouts. And a lot of those knockouts are from the 80s. The 80s and the 90s. So just type into YouTube, 70 Brutal Knockouts. I think it's in 3 parts. And you'll see some great knockouts from the 80s on there. Because there were so many. Okay, Atavistic Intellect says, I haven't touched psychedelics in years, but I was always doing it to study my experience, whereas people I knew who did it for fun ended up quite messed up. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the idea that there is some type of valve in the brain which filters out the true extent of reality. And what psychedelics allegedly do is to basically loosen that valve, right? And certain psychedelics, maybe they remove that valve completely or open it completely, and they allow the true extent of reality to flood in and for you to experience it all. And if you take these things too much, that valve can remain permanently loose and you'll basically become psychotic. That's the idea. The Great said, Hatman, AJ showing signs of CTE at the press conference today, in my opinion. He seemed different. Big up Myanmar. I thought AJ seemed different as well, but my interpretation, and look, I can't say he hasn't got early stage CTE. He might have, right? That Dubois fight was brutal. But my takeaway from AJ was, I think he's just contemptuous of Jake Paul, to be honest. He was putting on the nice guy act and saying, oh, I respect him and all this. But to me, AJ looked far more relaxed than he normally does at a presser. Because he knows he's in with a complete novice. And he, I think, genuinely believes he's going to be able to do whatever he wants in the ring there with him. So that was my takeaway from it. But maybe if I watch the whole thing, I'll come to the same conclusion as you. I don't know, because I only watched 5 minutes or so of that presser, skipping through it. Big up Matt for the super chat. He says, I heard that before. I think it's called stupidity. Matt says, AJ seemed a little Lennox Lewis-y, if you get me. Well, Lennox Lewis suffered from the opposite problem that Anthony Joshua has generally suffered from most of his career. I speak about everyone having a baseline level of confidence. This is a level of confidence which is maybe innate, right? Some people are naturally, through genetics, more confident than other people. And AJ's his baseline level of confidence isn't as high, in my opinion, as Luke Partridge, aka Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, and even lesser heavyweights like Dylan White. I think those guys have a higher baseline level of confidence. So there's your baseline confidence, and then there's the confidence that you gain through experience. Yeah, you can build upon your baseline confidence with positive experiences. Lennox Lewis always had an extremely high baseline level of confidence, all right? To such an extent that when he did lose, it wasn't because he was scared in the ring. It wasn't because he went into his shell. No, he lost because he was arrogant, overconfident, and didn't have any respect for his opponent. Both times against Oliver McCall and the first Hassan-Ratman fight. Right, well, first McCall fight, first Ratman fight. Lewis was so ice cold, I'm talking about his personality, that he would often fall asleep in the dressing room before fights. Most guys are, shaking with nerves and anticipation and moving around the dressing room trying to control their nerves. Lennox Lewis had to be woken up in the dressing room many times because he was so relaxed, he was literally falling asleep. So that takes a serious amount of confidence. Now, here against Jake Paul, yeah, maybe Anthony Joshua does feel that type of confidence going in against a novice. Maybe that's refreshing for him to feel that confident rather than nervous. Oh, okay. Matt is saying, no, AJ's definitely zesty. I don't really get that vibe from him, but I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. But I've never really got that vibe watching him myself. But I can't dismiss it with these public figures. A lot of them are zesty behind the scenes. So, I don't know. Big up Matt. Big up Anthony Palmer. He says, Hatman, as it stands, who do you think has a better resume, AJ or Carl Froch? Yeah, I've been asked this question before. The Great says, I don't think confidence is genetic at all. It's all upbringing and experience. I totally disagree. Because you inherit character traits from your family members. Anyone that's ever bred animals will know that you inherit character traits from your parents, genetically. And a character trait can be confidence, right? So no, I think you're totally wrong about that. You inherit many traits from your parents, and one of them can be the confidence level. I mean, when you have parents, like one parent who's really neurotic and lacks confidence, you'll tend to see that in at least one of the kids. They'll inherit that character trait. So no, I think that confidence, the baseline level of confidence is genetic. But then you can build confidence on top of that through experience. I think it's actually quite bizarre to act like confidence is not genetic at all, because again, you inherit so many of your personality traits genetically from your parents. Nothing to do with nurture, but to do with genetics, behavioral characteristics and tendencies and stuff like that. Even for people that are adopted, that don't grow up with their biological parents, later on in life, they'll find out they've got a lot in common with one of their parents, as far as their personality traits and whatnot, because of the genetics. The Great says, how come my parents are laid back and shy and I'm the opposite? Are you an only child? Because the genetics that you get from your parents are like a soup, right? You're not going to express all of the genes that your parents carry, either physically or in terms of personality. Genetic traits can skip generations. This is well known. Ask a geneticist. Physical genetic traits can skip generations. And so going by that, you have to imagine that personality traits can also skip generations. So with my family, for example, because I got a lot of siblings, I get a better idea of the genetic, the personality traits that are passed down from my parents. Whereas other personality traits, I think, well, my grandmother was more like that. Do you know what I mean? So again, you have to think about genetics not as you're going to be a carbon copy of your parents. It doesn't work like that. Your parents are basically carrying a genetic soup, for lack of a better term, and you're going to draw traits, physical traits, health traits, personality traits from that soup. Kayvon Green says, I breed dogs and yes, it's just genetic. Because of course, there are certain dog breeds like pit bull terriers which are bred for aggressiveness, right? Selective breeding, they breed the most aggressive dogs together and they end up with at least some of the litter being more aggressive than the previous generation. So yeah, anyone that deals with animals and selective breeding, they'll know that you can increase the chances of certain personality types in a litter, or however you describe what is a litter is dogs and cats, right? But anyway, you can increase the chances of certain personality types by selective breeding, which shows it's genetic. Or partly genetic. I think it's not nature or nurture, it's both. It's nature and nurture. But yeah, going back to Anthony Palmer's question, who has a better resume, AJ or Carl Froch? So Carl Froch beat Jean Pascal in a very tough fight. That was a very close fight. He had a very contentious decision over Andre Dirrell, which a lot of people to this day will tell you he lost that fight. He lost to Mikhail Kessler in their first fight. He beat Arthur Abraham, who'd seen better days. He beat Glencoff Johnson, who'd seen better days. He knocked out Lucian Bute. He beat Jermaine Taylor, obviously. That was a good win. Come from behind win to beat Jermaine Taylor. He beat Kessler in the rematch. And then there was the 2 fights with Groves. I would argue that Froch doesn't have anyone in his resume as good as Vladimir Klitschko. But of course, AJ beat Klitschko at the very end. But Klitschko was still useful when AJ beat him. Anyone trying to tell you that Klitschko was rubbish and totally washed by that point, I mean, it's nonsense. He was still very useful at that point, but he was at the end. But that's a better name than anyone Froch has got on his resume in the win column. Povetkin was very useful still when AJ fought him. I would say Froch just, but it's debatable and it's close. It's not a thing where Froch's resume blows AJ's resume. They have a close resume. The problem with AJ is that he's been knocked out, right? And whenever a fighter's been knocked out several times, it tends to, Dwyer always says knockouts cause amnesia. Yeah, it tends to cloud all of their achievements when they've been chinned. Carl Froch, when you look at his wins, doesn't have vastly better wins than Anthony Joshua, but we never saw Carl Froch get knocked out. So he's still got that kind of solid air about him, even in retirement. And people look at that more favorably from a psychological perspective than a guy who's been chinned a few times. But when I just look at the wins, I'm like, maybe I'd say Froch slightly, but it's pretty close, Especially when you take into account those contentious wins that Froch had, especially the Dirrell win. That was very debatable. And the Pascal, that was a very close fight, folks. Very close fight. Very, very close. A shout out to Matt. He says, do you think being a Fury is a mental illness? I don't think being a Fury is a mental illness, but I do think that the narcissistic personality of John Fury shows up in the son Tyson to some extent. I suspect Tyson's mum is a much softer character than John, right? Because Tyson isn't as narcissistic as the dad. The dad John's narcissism is off the scale. Which is ironic because he's nowhere near as talented as his son. And that again goes to show you that nature can have a bigger impact on these things than nurture in some cases, right? Because if it was all about experience, well, Tyson, aka Luke Partridge, he's become heavyweight champion of the world. He's made millions and he's a much, much better fighter than his dad ever was. So if anyone should be the super ultra narcissist, it should be Luke, right? But no, it's his dad, John, who is just a journeyman fighter. His ego is like bigger than his son's ego by a factor of several. You know what I mean? He's got like a crazy narcissistic ego. Big Gypsy John Partridge. Okay. Matt says, furry, or being a furry is a mental illness, not fury. The people in fur suits. Is that a euphemism for the Rainbow Gang? Is that what you mean? I need to watch what I say regarding that on this platform. I need to watch what I say. If you're talking about the Rainbow Gang, I'll talk about that on Patreon instead. Oh, you're not talking about the Rainbow Gang. All right. Yeah, it is also experience. There's no doubt. That's why I say you have a baseline level of confidence. And on top of the baseline, you gain confidence through experience, right? Positive experiences, you can build confidence on top of your baseline. Oh, wow. Matt says, Google furry. It's a subculture of people who dress as animals. Oh, for real? Never heard of that before. Pacer says, Prince Nassim was the biggest hype job ever. Prince Nassim was the biggest hype job ever? Okay, that's a strange take. Would you care to expand on that? Why was he the biggest hype job ever? The guy was a legitimate world champion. He held several belts. You know, knocked out Tom Johnson. Beat some good guys in his time. I'm not sure why he was the biggest hype job ever, but okay. He had one loss to Marco Antonio Barrera, who is a great fighter. It's no shame, is it? Losing on points to Barrera? The Great says, what caused Prince Nassim's crazy weight gain? Bizarre to change like that. I'm going to tell you that marriage and, in my opinion, possibly the influence, because Prince Nassim is an Arab, right? He's ethnically Arab. And not so much in Yemen, where Prince Nassim's family's from, but in the Gulf states, the Arab culture is not big on health. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. Those people have got massive disposable incomes in the Gulf states and places like Dubai, Qatar, and the obesity is off the scale. And so Prince Nassim basically turned into a stereotypical 21st century Arab after he retired. You know what I mean? So, okay, losing to Barrera makes him the biggest hype job ever. I still don't get it. Losing one fight to Barrera cancels out all of his achievements and all of the people he beat. Yeah, I'm not with you on that one. Big up Agni for the super chasers. Imagine how good Calzaghe would be if he had a real trainer. I think his dad did a fantastic job, to be honest. I think his dad did a fantastic job. Yeah, his dad didn't box. And he was a very colorful character, the dad. But sometimes you can get an anomaly like that. Somebody that hasn't boxed but is able to understand boxing. And I don't know, I think his dad did a fantastic job. I can't say whether Calzaghe would have been so much better had he been with someone else, because like I say, he did a fantastic job. But big up Agni. Because you think about like what Calzaghe did, the way he fought, areas he could improve on. People said that he was a slapper. I mean, sometimes he could slap with his shots, yes. You could perhaps improve that a bit. But someone famously said of Calzaghe, if he does slap, he slaps hard. He could be in Dana White's slap league these days, right? He slaps hard. Dropped Chris Eubank Sr., right? Obviously, he was very old by then, but still, well, I say very old. Early 30s, maybe late 20s. But that was towards the back end of his career. He was somewhat shop-worn by then. But still, Calzaghe decked Eubank Sr. Not many people Can say they did that. Big up Agni. Big up Matt Borgerson for the super chat. He says, is Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua like John Fury versus Joe Egan? No, I think John Fury versus Joe Egan is a much more even fight. So J2R says, was Nassim overrated in your opinion, Hatman? People go overboard about him, in my opinion, even though he is a great fighter. I would say every fighter with a big fan base is overrated by a certain section of their fan base. Pacer says, hype job ring entrance in a weak division, stepped up to world level and got found out. Prince Nassim total hype job. Yeah, I can't understand your comment there. If he's winning world titles, right, as Prince Nassim did, then that means he's at world level. Tom Johnson was a long reigning world champion from America. Prince Nassim went in with him and knocked him out. That's world level. So why are you saying that when as soon as he stepped up to world level, he lost? It don't make sense. He was fighting at world level for years before he lost to Barrera. Was it a relatively weak era? Yeah, maybe. But I've seen weaker eras than that. He beat some solid guys. So, did he win in America? Of course he won in America. He beat Kevin Kelly in America. Who's the guy that, the last guy to beat Mayweather? I forget his name now. Augie Sanchez in America. But who cares about winning in America? If you beat someone good, you beat someone good. Tom Johnson was from America. He was a long reigning champion. He fought Prince Nassim in the UK and he got knocked out. So where the fight happens is kind of irrelevant. It's who you're fighting. And I think Pacer's just got it in for Prince Nassim for some other reason. I don't know why, but yeah, I definitely can't concur with what you're saying. He beat champions, and champions are world level fighters. So what you said there regarding as soon as he stepped up to world level is just false. Maybe you should have worded it as elite level. But I don't see how that makes him the biggest hype job ever. It doesn't make sense to me. But going back to the previous question there, was Prince Nassim overhyped? Like I say, most fighters with a fan base are overhyped by their fans, by the diehard fans, right? Mike Tyson diehards overhype Mike Tyson. Muhammad Ali diehards overhype Muhammad Ali. Rocky Marciano diehards overhype Rocky Marciano. It is what it is. I'm sure people, for nostalgic reasons, who grew up on Prince Nassim, who were inspired to either take up boxing themselves or started watching boxing because of how fun Prince Nassim was. I'm sure a section of them overhype him. So, I don't, I've come across loads of fighters that get overhyped to this day. And when I'm thinking of like the top fighters in terms of being overhyped of all time, where the fans just go totally overboard, I wouldn't put Prince Nassim in the top 5 overhyped. Mike Tyson would go in the top 5, and Mike Tyson was a fantastic fighter, but his fans are just cultishly insane with the way they talk about that guy. In fact, I was watching Mike, because I love watching Mike Tyson fights. He's very, very entertaining. Again, I don't like using the term hype job because it just, Pacer, for some reason, you just got it in for Prince. There's something you don't like about him beyond boxing. I don't know what it is. Maybe you just don't like his personality. Maybe it's because he's British. I don't know what it is, but you just don't like him for some other reason. Because losing one fight to Barrera doesn't make you the biggest hype job. It doesn't even make sense what you're saying. But yeah, with Mike Tyson, like his fans, his fanboys, because I like Mike Tyson, right? But they go so overboard. I was watching Mike Tyson, Pinkland Thomas. That's one of my favorite finishes of all time. Mike Tyson knocked out Pinkland Thomas. I was watching that fight again the other day. And if you watch that fight, Mike Tyson comes out smoking in the first round. But from rounds 2 to rounds 5, he's very pedestrian. He's not doing anything spectacular. People's, Mike Tyson fanboys will say, oh, he carried Pinkland Thomas. What a load of rubbish. Of course he didn't carry him. Mike Tyson was a guy who was trying to knock you out in the first round in every fight. He wasn't trying to carry anyone. Absurd. No, he was trying to knock Pinkland. He literally tried to knock Pinkland Thomas out in the first round the best he could. Didn't manage to do it. And just watch that fight from rounds 2 to round 5 and you tell me if that guy was invincible. Because he looked far from invincible from rounds 2 to 5. Now, obviously, he finally got through with big shots in round 6 and took Pinkland Thomas out. Spectacular finish. But knockouts, as Dwyer always says, cause amnesia. And you forget what happened, what preceded that knockout was not very impressive. But yeah, I would say Mike Tyson is definitely top 5 most overhyped fighters in history. Overhyped doesn't mean he was rubbish. It just means his fans go overboard, right? They hype him up too much. Prince Naseem's not in the top 5, man. I don't see that level of fanaticism for Prince Naseem where people are making him out to be like, some incredible, invincible. I don't see that level of devotion to him. What I can say about Prince Naseem is that he was a very athletically gifted fighter. He's one of the best punchers I've ever seen at featherweight. And he was a very entertaining fighter, an entertaining style. He would throw punches from crazy angles and leap in with uppercuts and hooks and all this type of stuff. Very entertaining to watch. Great viewing, Prince Naseem. That's my real takeaway from Prince Naseem is just how entertaining he was. I don't rate him up there as, one of the great pound-for-pound fighters of all time at all. But from an entertainment perspective, he was fantastic. And he was a great fighter. He was a very good fighter at least. But my takeaway from the Prince Naseem era, which obviously I lived through in real time, was that he was Mr. Entertainment. The ring walks were entertaining. The interviews were entertaining. The fights were entertaining. And that's really, from a commercial perspective, the most important thing in boxing is being entertaining. Big up Gaz for the super chat. He says, how would Vitali have done in this era? Would he dominate? I don't think so. I don't think he would dominate, no. I don't see Vitali Klitschko beating Usyk. Personally, I don't see it. I think Usyk beats Vitali Klitschko. Big up Kayvon Green for the super chat. He says, Tyson is overrated and underrated at the same time. Is he underrated? I haven't seen many people that, in my opinion, would underrate Mike Tyson. I don't know. Some people underrate him. But when it comes to opinions on Mike Tyson from the general public, it's generally that they overrate him. That they just see him as way better than he actually was. And he was a great fighter, but they just go overboard. And all of the shortcomings that Mike Tyson had, there's always 10,000 excuses for him. Mike Tyson's career in terms of his resume is always preceded by a bunch of what ifs. Well, if D'Amato hadn't died, if Jimmy Jacobs hadn't died, if he'd stayed with Kevin Rooney, if he hadn't gone to prison, if. I've never heard the word if being used so much to cover up for a fighter's shortcomings, as is the case with Mike Tyson. Like the if gang are out in crazy force when it comes to Mike Tyson. Oh, he wouldn't have lost to Holyfield if he hadn't got headbutted. You know what I mean? Like all this, like give it a rest. How many other fighters are allowed to have that many excuses for their losses? It's crazy, man. Always these excuses. Like when Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas, I think he was 24 years old, 23 or 24. He was in his prime. He wasn't maybe the sharpest he ever was. He was in better shape for some other fights. But in terms of age, he was in his prime. He was only 23, 24 years old. When he lost to Holyfield, he was 30, I think, for the first fight. He just turned 30. Because that fight was in November of 96. I think he would have turned 30 in, is it June? I think Mike Tyson was born in June 96. He was 30 and some change. So, this was not an ancient late 30s, early 40s fighter when he suffered his first two losses. First loss was when he was 24, second loss he was 30. But somehow there's a gazillion excuses. But Mike Tyson was a great fighter, but he was never invincible. I've never bought that. They say that Prince Nassim was around in a weak era. Perhaps he was. Mike Tyson was around in a weak era. Let's be real. He was around in a weak era, and that's what allowed him to be as dominant as he was. And even then, he still got beat. Eventually. NSGs says Mike Tyson should have never been a heavyweight really at his size, so I think he overachieved. Well, he was always going to be a heavyweight because cruiserweight during Mike Tyson's day was 190 pounds. And Mike Tyson was never going to make 190 pounds. He weighed 190 pounds when he was like 13. So no, Mike Tyson was always going to be a heavyweight. When they raised the cruiserweight division limit to 200 pounds, Mike Tyson was either retired by then or totally finished. Because I remember when they raised the limit, it was right before the David Haye Carl Thompson fight. Yeah, it was in the months that led up to the David Haye Carl Thompson fight, or the year that led up to that, the 12 months that led up to it. That's when they raised the limit from 190 pounds to 200 pounds. And Mike Tyson was either retired by then or completely done. Mike Tyson retired in the very early 2000s after the Kevin McBride defeat. Was it 2004 or something when he retired? Maybe around there, 2003, 2004. I forget when David Haye Carl Thompson was. But yeah, no, Mike Tyson could never have been anything but a heavyweight during his day. Today, Mike Tyson, if he was around in his prime, could have fought a cruiserweight. Yeah. Because for a lot of his, when he fought Trevor Berbick, he weighed 220 something. In terms of body mass, Mike Tyson very similar to Usyk in terms of body mass. Obviously much shorter, but Tyson was very compact and muscular naturally. But big up. Kayvon Green for the super chat. Agni says, Partridge is the most overhyped. Yeah. I would say I've never seen such egregious overhyping of a heavyweight as was the case with Partridge after he beat Dillian Whyte. That was crazy. Now, Mike Tyson fans go overboard, but at least Mike Tyson beat everyone there was to beat just about during his reign in the 80s. Whereas Luke Partridge had hardly beaten anyone. And he beats Dillian Whyte, who got chinned a couple fights earlier by Povetkin. And you got Sylvester Stallone and all these other people coming out saying he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. At that stage, he'd had, I think, 4 heavyweight title fights or 5. And 3 of them have been against the same guy. And based on that, they're calling him the greatest heavyweight of all time. Like, give it a rest. I've never seen people go that extreme before. Yeah. I've never seen a fighter get that ridiculous type of praise for achieving relatively little. That was totally over the top. Way over the top. Big up Atavistic Intellect. He says, the ITV big fight theme is the greatest of all time boxing theme. I concur. Da, 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 I agree. Yes. The Big Fight Live. That was the theme tune for the Big Fight Live on ITV. I concur. That was the greatest boxing theme tune ever. The Big Fight Live. Big atavistic intellect. Anyone else remember that theme tune? Was that composed specifically for that program? Or is it a theme tune that existed elsewhere and then they adopted it? Does anyone know? Because that was a fantastic theme. Big up NSG. He says, Mike was extremely undersized. He overachieved based on his small stature. Never really should have been a heavyweight, but Cuss probably gave him PEDs. No, I don't really think that he was undersized because he was short, but in terms of body mass, he was comparable to the heavyweights he was fighting during his prime. So Trevor Berbick and Mike Tyson weighed the same, pretty much the same when they fought. Pinkler Thomas was the same weight as Mike Tyson. Tony Tucker was the same weight as Mike Tyson. Larry Holmes was a little heavier, but he was way past his best by then. But in Holmes' prime, he was actually a bit lighter than Mike Tyson. Michael Spinks was lighter than Mike Tyson. Obviously, he moved up from light heavyweight. Some guys were heavier, like Bruno, Tubbs, Bone Crusher Smith, Tyrell Biggs. But Carl the Truth Williams was the same weight as Mike Tyson. So no, he really wasn't undersized. Because obviously in boxing, we go by body weight, not by height. No, he wasn't undersized for his time because heavyweights back then were still quite small. Today he'd be undersized, but back then he really wasn't undersized. As far as Cuss giving him PEDs, I can't discount the possibility, but Teddy Atlas said that the first time he ever saw Mike Tyson, before they even took him to Cuss, he was enormous for his age, and he wanted to see the birth certificate. So I can't really say I concur with that. I think Mike Tyson was a good size for a 1980s heavyweight in terms of natural body mass. He was a good size. He was short, but very, very naturally stocky and big. But big up NSGS for the super chat. Okay, big up Cobra. He says, anytime you're bored, just look up David Haye trash talking videos. Never fails to make me laugh. Yeah, you know what? I gave David Haye a lot of criticism during his career because of the way that he was ducking the Klitschko's for a couple of years, which he did do. He eventually fought Vladimir, of course, but he was ducking the Klitschko's for a couple of years and gaslighting the public to think that they were ducking him when that blatantly weren't the case. So I gave David Haye a lot of stick over that, rightly so. He frustrated me during his heavyweight career because of all the ducking and pulling out and all that stuff. But when David Haye retired and when he was beaten by Bellew twice, I can't lie, I did start to miss the Haymaker because the trash talk was very, very funny. It was funny. At heavyweight, far more so than cruiserweight. At cruiserweight, he didn't really trash talk that much, a little bit. But when he stepped up to heavyweight, the trash talking went through the roof. He trash talked Vladimir Klitschko, you know, when he caught him in that shopping center and he ran down on Klitschko. That was funny. Obviously, in the run-up to the fight with Nikolai Valoev, where he said he looked like something out of Lord of the Rings. The stuff he said in the run-up to the Audley Harrison fight was funny. And he stood on business. He refused to retract what he said when the PC brigade at Sky and the mainstream media in Britain were asking him to apologize and all this stuff. And David Haye stood on business. So, Haye was a great trash talker, a fun character. Adam Fitzpatrick says, anyone see Matthew Saad Muhammad fight? Yes, I did see Matthew Saad Muhammad fight in the 1980s. And funny enough, right? It was kind of weird. Going back to Prince Nassim, he obviously beat Kevin Kelly in that famous fight at Madison Square Garden. They traded knockdowns. Kevin Kelly always used to say that his favorite fighter growing up was Matthew Saad Muhammad. And that was curious because Kevin Kelly was more of a stylist. Obviously, later on in his career, he was known for like these brutal wars that he got involved in with Prince Nassim and who was Roy Jones's friend who Kevin Kelly knocked out? I forget the guy's name now, but he was involved in a bunch of like real slugfests. But Kevin Kelly, at his peak, was really a stylist. They called him the Flushing Flash. He was from Flushing, New York. And he was like a flashy boxer puncher. Matthew Saad Muhammad was like a blood and guts fighter. And maybe that's where Kevin Kelly got his grit and determination from. Maybe that inspired him was from watching Matthew Saad Muhammad. Because Matthew Saad Muhammad was not a flashy stylist. Derek Gainer, thank you. That was Roy Jones's friend, yeah, that Kevin Kelly had that war with. That's right, Derek Gainer. Thank you, lanky Derek Gainer. So, yeah, Matthew Saad Muhammad, one of the warlords of the 80s. Yeah, he glassed me. How could I forget to talk about that? David Hay, he glassed me, the Derek Chisora roll around in Germany. That was the pinnacle of the David Hay antics. Was the roll around with Derek Chisora in Germany. He glassed me. Who could forget that? Atavistic Intellect says, I always find it funny when I watch old ITV fights. When a boxer is hurt, Reg Guttridge says he's like a kid in a playpen. Yeah, stumbling around like a kid in a playpen. Reg Guttridge had so many great sayings, which I borrowed off him or teethed off him. One of them would be when he's talking about weights. Obviously in Britain, the weights are in stone and pounds, right? Stone, pounds, and ounces. In America, they just do pounds. So Reg Guttridge would always say, this guy is 15 stone, or this guy's 210 pounds, that's 15 stone in English money. He called it English money. Another one that I took from Reg Guttridge would be the postman's knock. The old postman's knock, that's the double jab. Because, you know, when the postman knocks on the door, it's always 2 knocks. Reg Guttridge would call the double jab the old postman's knock. So yeah, I liked Reg Guttridge's old sayings. He was always coming out with these old sayings. It was great. And they were the double act for years on ITV, Reg Guttridge and Jim Watt. I much preferred Reg Guttridge over Harry Carpenter. I was never a fan of Harry Carpenter as a commentator, but I liked Reg Guttridge and Jim Watt. ZS Handle, what's up? Big up NSGS. He says, JP seems to think he's faster than AJ. Maybe he is in terms of foot speed. When he gets up on his toes and moves around, he probably is a bit faster than AJ. In terms of hand speed, AJ's pretty fast. So I don't know about being faster than AJ in terms of hand speed, because AJ's hand speed is pretty fast. I don't know. In terms of foot speed, maybe. And also AJ is an aging fighter now, so he's not going to be as fast as he was a few years ago. Maybe I'm thinking of the AJ of yesteryear when I think of the speed. Like when he fought Andy Ruiz, he was still pretty quick in both fights. Is he a bit slower now? His reflexes are definitely slower, but there is a difference between hand speed and reflexes, right? Reflexes are how quickly your brain reacts and then kicks your body into action. Whereas hand speed is just the speed that it takes from for the fist to go from your guard to the target. Yeah, how quickly it goes from the guard to the target. Whereas reflexes are how quickly the signal is sent from your brain to the body. And AJ's reflexes, I think it's fair to say, are not what they used to be. Pacer says, Ben versus McClellan, best fight ever, February 1995. I would say that's the most intense fight I've ever watched live. Not that I was there, but I mean, I watched it live on ITV. And like the atmosphere and the fight itself was just so intense. It almost felt like an illegal fight. Do you know what I mean? It felt like some kind of underground blood sport type fight, because the atmosphere was like a bear pit. It was like a feverish atmosphere, and the fight was just so violent and intense. It felt like it should be illegal. Just the atmosphere, you know what I mean? The crowd were baying for blood like it was a fight to the death. And unfortunately, Gerald McClellan nearly did lose his life. NSGS says, if Jake Paul is faster, that could make AJ look very bad. I think the only danger for AJ in this fight is this weight limit. At the age of 36, I mean, this is a guy that's never had to make a weight limit before in his life. This is a heavyweight. He's been a super heavyweight in the amateurs from day one. And obviously he's been a heavyweight as a pro, so he's never had to do a weight limit in his life. So doing a weight limit for the first time ever at the age of 36, at relatively short notice, you never know what that could do to him. You never know what that could do to him. For me, that's the only danger. If AJ comes in, if he was coming in at his normal weight, 250, 260, it doesn't matter if Jake Paul's faster than him. He's going to be able to read everything Jake Paul's doing, jab him to the chest, jab him to upstairs, downstairs, big right hand to the chest. It'd be quite similar to the Otto Wallin fight, I think. If it's like a healthy AJ, just goes in there, sticks a couple of solid jabs on the kid's going to be terrified. I mean, he was terrified of a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. If AJ lands a big right hand on his chest, he's going to be thinking, I don't want that to land on my face. So I think AJ will be able to do whatever he wants with him, to be honest. I don't think if there is any extra speed from Jake Paul, I don't really think it'd help him much. Southpaw says, Hatman AJ keeps his left hand low. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And when AJ keeps his left hand low, it's a deliberate thing. It's like a stylistic choice. In some fights, the left hand is always up. In other fights, it's low. And sometimes it's the right thing to have the left hand low. Because when the left hand comes down, you feel more loose and relaxed. When your hands are up all the time, especially when you're a stiffer fighter like AJ, you can feel stiff, you know what I mean? Pause. For example, in the Usyk rematch, his left hand was always up throughout the fight. Against Daniel Dubois, he fought with a left hand low. So it depends on the fight. I think with AJ, it's really a choice. I don't think it's like a lapse in concentration that much. It's more of a choice. Because, for example, is there a rehydration clause? Not that I'm aware of. But for example, when he fought Alexander Povetkin, he started that fight with both hands up, with his left hand up. And he started getting clocked with all sorts of shots. And he was meeting Povetkin in the middle of the ring with both hands up. And Povetkin was piecing him up. Then he decided to go on the back foot and drop his left hand and fight in a more relaxed style. And it's then that he got control of the fight and was able to wear Povetkin down and knock him out. So this whole thing about, oh, it's bad to have the left hand down, not necessarily. In some cases, it's the right thing to do. It's the best thing to do. The key in boxing is situational awareness. And AJ's situational awareness isn't maybe as good as some of the other fighters out there. He doesn't have the innate boxing brain, the instincts, to the same extent as an Usyk or a Partridge or whatever. So the situational awareness, knowing when it's okay to drop the left hand, and against who, and in which situations, etc. King James says, would Jake Paul last one round with Butterbean? I think not. I think Jake Paul would last a round with Butterbean. Someone says Jake Paul would beat Butterbean. See, I saw Butterbean throughout his career. He was really a novelty fighter, Butterbean, from day one. He was Bob Arum's novelty fighter. The first time they put him in there with anyone that had any type of ability at all, it was a guy called Mitchell Rose at Madison Square Garden, and Butterbean got stopped in that fight. Mitchell Rose was no great shakes. He pieced Butterbean up and stopped him, I think, in round 2. I don't know, that'd be a good fight, actually. A prime Butterbean versus Jake Paul. It might be like the Thriller in Manila, just at a much lower level. Adam says, Riddick Bowe, who beat Holyfield, does he take Lewis? Personally, I don't think so. One of the reasons I always felt that Lewis would beat Bowe even in the pros is because Lewis, I think, was physically stronger than Riddick Bowe, and he had a better defense. Riddick Bowe had a really poor defense. He just got hit far too much, which is why he's so punch drunk now. And I think Riddick Bowe flew under the radar a little bit as far as his chin. Riddick Bowe didn't have an iron jaw, folks. And he didn't fight punchers in his career. Lennox Lewis fought loads of big punchers. Riddick Bowe didn't. So he kind of got away with having maybe not the greatest chin in the world. I mean, Tyrell Biggs hurt Riddick Bowe. You go watch their fight. Yeah, Tyrell Biggs had him on shaky legs. An ancient Tyrell Biggs, long after. In fact, no, was that before or after Lewis beat Tyrell Biggs? I can't remember now, but they both came up in the same era, right? From the same Olympic cycle. But Tyrell Biggs had Riddick Bowe on ice skates for a second there. Riddick Bowe obviously was dropped by Holyfield. Got totally annihilated in 2 fights by Gallotta, although Gallotta, because he was crazy, got himself disqualified twice. I just don't think, when your defense is as poor as Riddick Bowe's was, unless you've got an iron jaw, I don't see you beating a prime Lewis when he was on fire. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Lewis was a real sharpshooter. He was more defensively aware. He got hit less. And in terms of the chins, I don't think Lewis's chin was any worse than Bowe's chin. It's just that Lewis fought a lot more big punches than Bowe did. Yeah, you think about Riddick Bowe's... When did Riddick Bowe fight any big punches? Lewis fought Mike Tyson, Vitaly Klitschko, Shannon Briggs, David Tua, Razor Ruddock, Frank Bruno. Loads and loads of massive punches Lewis fought him. Riddick Bowe, I mean, Gallotta was a decent puncher, but he wasn't a massive puncher. And that's about it. Jorge Luis Gonzalez, I mean, he was a decent puncher, nothing special. Riddick Bowe didn't fight any big punchers, man. You know, so he kind of got away with having a reputation of having a really solid chin without actually being hit by any big punches. Adam says, Ray Mercer, there's an underrated heavyweight, one of the best to never win a world title. Well, he won the WBO heavyweight title, which back then was not recognized as a real world title. So if you're going on the context of the time, then yeah, you could say Ray Mercer never won a world title because the WBO was seen the same way that the IBO is seen today. It wasn't taken seriously. But yeah, Ray Mercer was WBO heavyweight champion back then for whatever that was worth. Mercer wasn't that good. He was tough. He was game. But he really, really was up and down in his performances, you know? Really up and down. He was really bad against Larry Holmes in a fight he lost. He was terrible when he fought Jesse Ferguson. He fought Jesse Ferguson twice. And Ferguson actually claims that Ray Mercer tried to bribe him to lose. Yeah. Jesse Ferguson said that Ray Mercer offered him money to throw the fight. I think it was the rematch. He offered him money to throw the fight. But he was really bad against Jesse Ferguson. I think Mercer was actually drained in the Holyfield fight. He was drained in that fight because that was the lightest he'd been for years. He got down to like his old weight. Bear in mind, Ray Mercer was an Olympic gold medalist at 200 pounds heavyweight, and he turned pro in his late 20s. So most of his career was in his 30s, you know. So, you know, it's just going to be so hard in your mid-30s to get down to the weight you were in your late 20s. And Mercer also had drinking problems. He used to drink a lot. He had issues with alcohol, overeating, and what have you. He had the face of a drinker, Ray Mercer. Ever look at Ray Mercer's face and his eyes? His eyes somehow always look bloodshot. So he had a drinker's face. But yeah, he was a big drinker, Ray Mercer. And I always felt he was he just looked weak in that Holyfield fight. That was the first time he got dropped as a pro, was against Holyfield. And he was known, obviously, for having a fantastic chin. And Holyfield didn't hit him anywhere near as hard as Tommy Morrison hit him, or Lennox Lewis hit him. It's just that in the Morrison fight, that was much earlier on in his career, when he was more comfortable at that particular weight. And when he fought Lewis, he came in heavy. He was like 238 or something, and he looked tubby, but he wasn't drained. He was strong. Even though he was overweight, he was strong. Whereas in that Holyfield fight, he just looked drained to me. If you go back and watch it, it just seems weak. If you're familiar with how Ray Mercer normally looks, right? Take nothing away from Holyfield, but yeah, for me, that was a drained Mercer. Big up Ben. Shout out Ben Odom. Yeah, that's right. Ray Mercer was a veteran. He learned to box, I think, in the military. He was a sergeant, actually, Ray Mercer. Yeah, he was a sergeant. I'm not sure if he was a combat veteran. I don't think he was a combat veteran, but yeah, he was in the military. A sergeant in the military. And he boxed as an amateur for the military. In fact, when he was in the Olympics, well, he was boxing for the United States. But yeah, I'm sure I've seen Ray Mercer like in a military vest in some of his amateur fights. So I think he boxed like in his amateur career for the military. Well, Ray Mercer's punch resistance was really damaged after the Lennox Lewis fight because he suffered a trapped nerve, or nerve damage, should I say, in his neck in the Lennox Lewis fight. And subsequently, he had surgery on his neck to repair the nerve damage. But after that surgery, his punch resistance was never the same, because that's when he ended up being stopped by Shannon Briggs, by a fairly innocuous looking punch, and also Klitschko. Yeah? So his punch resistance was never the same after he had that neck surgery. Big up Chainsaw. Yeah, what's going on with YouTube doing this weird thing of not showing the normal usernames and showing the default names rather than the bespoke names? That's annoying. Big up Chainsaw in the chat. What's up, what's up? If everyone can stick a like on this stream, it'll be much appreciated. 210 concurrent viewers, 76 likes. If we can get it up to like 105 likes, it'll be much, much, much appreciated. Thank you in advance. It really helps the visibility of these streams in the YouTube algorithm. Mr. Will Guitar says, I remember the Mercer Lewis fight, and pre-fight, they said they could tell he, as in Mercer, was taking this one seriously because of all the running he had been doing around his hotel room. No other road work, yeah. That was one of the things I liked about the American commentators back in the days, is they would crack jokes about the fighters. These days, it's like you're not allowed to do that, it seems. But back then they used to crack jokes about the fighter. That used to make me laugh. Big up Ben Oldham for the super chat. No message on that one, just a super chat. Much appreciated, sir. You want to drop a comment, I'll be more than happy to read it out. Big up June Sports. Big up Warren Paul Williams. Boxing Mind says, Hayes #1 fanboy. Is that you, Kieran? Is that Kieran? Hayes #1 fanboy. Is that my guy Kieran over there in Brum? NSGS says, I honestly think Paul might be better than Wallin and Hellenius. I completely disagree. If Paul does better than Wallin or Hellenius, I think it will be a measure of how much AJ has regressed or maybe the weight stipulation. I wouldn't pick Jake Paul to beat Hellenius, the Hellenius that fought AJ or Otto Wallin at all. Not even close. I think Otto Wallin would beat Jake Paul easily. I mean, this is an Otto Wallin that gave Luke Partridge a real fight. This is an Otto Wallin that beat Murat Gassiev. No, I don't think Otto Wallin. I cannot see Jake Paul beating Otto Wallin. Again, Jake Paul lost to Tommy Fury. I don't see Jake Paul beating Otto Wallin at all. At all. Like, not at all. People are saying Wallin is awful. Again, Wallin beat Murat Gassiev. Beat him well. Never mind the scorecards, the fight was in Russia. He beat him well. He hurt Murat Gassiev in that fight too. He beat Dominic Brazil. Remember that fight? Totally outclassed Dominic Brazil. And he gave Luke Partridge a tough fight. Didn't cut him with a headbutt, cut him with a left hand. So, no, I think Otto Wallin beats Jake Paul easily. The Wallin that was fighting people like, even the Wallin that fought AJ, but the Wallin that certainly fought Partridge and Gassiev, that was right before the AJ fight. Dominic Brazil, I mean, that guy totally destroys, in my opinion, Jake Paul. I don't think that's much of a fight, to be honest. Okay, we got a Partridge fanboy here. He says, Wallin got a lucky cut, OK Fury in an otherwise one-sided fight, so dial it down. You need to dial it down, fanboy. Don't get butt hurt because Partridge had a difficult fight against Wallin. Dear, oh dear. It wasn't lucky. It was a good left hand that he landed in the second round, and he landed that shot several times throughout the fight, especially in the early rounds. It forced Partridge to ditch the boxing he was doing and start to pressure Wallin. That's the way he ended up beating him, by pressuring him. Because when he was boxing with him, Wallin kept catching him. So all this talk about lucky, yeah, you're a butthurt fanboy, give it a rest. No one's making up tales. And you don't like Fury. No, you do like Fury. You give it a rest about you don't like Fury. You love Partridge. That's why you're so triggered. Partridge fanboys trying to deny what they are. Like a person that drinks a bottle of vodka every day saying, I'm not an alcoholic. Yeah, okay, fanboy. Someone says, is that John Fury's burner account? As if these guys can sneak under the radar. They reveal themselves. You know the way that you can get the Partridge fanboys out of the woodwork is just by calling him Partridge. As soon as you start using it, just use it casually, not even in a trolly way. Just casually start calling him Luke Partridge. You'll see him come out the woodwork. Paul Kirby, suck your mum, Partridge fanboy. Suck your mum. You're coming in here, giving it funny vibes. Suck your mum. How about that? The Partridge is clocking hard. Indeed, he's calling him Fury. That says it all. He's not calling him Partridge. We call him Partridge around these parts. Big up Daniel for the super chat. He says, you catch the part where AJ says Jake is more braver than Tyson Fury? He's sitting here. I didn't see that part. You know what? That's a legitimate thing for AJ to say at this stage. Because AJ did call Partridge out. Was it last year? He called him out. And Partridge not interested. Or was it earlier this year? I forget now. But he called Partridge out and Partridge don't want it. So, for him to say that at this stage, I think it's a fair comment. Big up Daniel for the super chat. Big up Ben for the super chat. He says, is it me or is Partridge looking frail these days? Or maybe staying in shape for another potential rematch with Usyk? Yeah, I'm concerned about Usyk not fighting Fabio Wardley because you wonder who he's going to fight instead. Somebody earlier on during the stream claims that they have it on good authority that Usyk's going to be fighting Hrgovic next, which is kind of a puzzling matchup, but okay. I guess as a unified champion, you are allowed to have voluntaries, right? All champions, great champions of the past, had voluntary defenses. It wasn't just all mandatory. So, okay, I guess we can give him some grace on a voluntary, but I'd much rather have seen him fight Wardley. You know? But anyway, Wardley or Hrgovic, as long as it ain't a Partridge trilogy match. Partridge needs to earn that. Big up Ben Oldham for the super chat. And as far as is Partridge looking frail these days, I haven't really been keeping track of his social media to look at him. I know he's ticking over in the gym. Partridge, because of his genetics, his physical aging, I'm not talking about his face, I mean his body, has been maybe the most dramatic I've seen on a heavyweight at world level. Because if you look at Partridge when he fought Steve Cunningham, look at his body. He was in his early 20s then. You look at his body then compared to his body now, and the difference is absolutely massive. Dare I say it, back then he looked somewhat athletic aesthetically. Even though at the time we still thought he looked a little chubby. He had, little love handles and whatnot, but he looked somewhat athletic. But the change now, his body looks like a sack of spuds now. It's all saggy and, you know what I mean? he's got the body of like a 70-year-old man or something, aesthetically. So it's been like a huge change in the way his body looks. Part of that obviously is gaining all that weight. You know, when he was on his hiatus and battling UCAD, he got up to some ridiculous weight and then lost it all. But then you look at the Wilder rematch, and even then aesthetically he looked okay. But yeah, subsequent to that, he looks like a popped balloon. Somebody said, I think it might have been Tim Bradley, it was one of the American pundits or commentators, that said Tyson Fury looks like 270 pounds of chewed bubblegum. So yeah, his physical, from an aesthetic point of view, his physical deterioration has been like dramatic, you know, compared to the other compared to his contemporaries. Love calling him Partridge. Yeah, I mean, it fits him so well. It's so natural to call him Partridge now. You know what I mean? Luke Partridge. Trollsabad says, Wilder 2 was the best Fury in my opinion. Maybe. Wilder 2 or Klitschko, they were very different performances and it was a very different version of Partridge. I wish we would have seen the version of Partridge that was going to fight David Haye, because that's the best aesthetic shape I've ever seen him in. Like, look up images from Partridge in the run-up to the David Haye fight with his top off, and that is the most trim I've ever seen him in his whole career, amateur or pro. And I would have been fascinated to see the way he approached that fight, whether he would have been aggressive or, do you know what I mean? Tony S says the most trim he's seen him was against Vinny Matalone. This is why the internet is undefeated. They're calling him Joe Sniff Parker. Joe Sniff Parker, okay. Adam says, yeah, good stamina for a fat heavyweight. Well, the thing is, right, there are different muscle types. Some people have compact, I don't know the technical scientific term for it, but some people have like compact protruding muscles. Other people have striated muscles, which are like elongated. And generally, people with striated muscles, elongated muscles, tend to maybe get less of a lactic acid buildup and therefore have better stamina, right? It's a generalization. It's not true for every individual. AJ's got the opposite of striated muscles. He's got those compact, like protruding muscles. some people's muscles are built for explosive short bursts, whereas other people have got muscles that are built for endurance. Ben Odom says fast twitch requires more hemoglobin. And this is another thing going back to Mike Tyson. One of the things that's unusual about Mike Tyson as pressure fighters go is that he really wasn't a volume puncher. If you go back and watch a prime Mike Tyson, he wasn't like Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier's more of a typical pressure fighter, non-stop punching, constantly bobbing and weaving. It's just, the motion is non-stop with Joe Frazier. Mike Tyson wasn't like that at all. He was actually a sprinter. As far as, he would fight in bursts. He would come out and fight consistently maybe for the first round. But after the first round or two, he'd be fighting in spurts for the remainder of the fight. And and that was actually one of Mike Tyson's weaknesses. The fact that he couldn't punch consistently for 3 minutes of a round, even in his prime. Yeah, he always had a sprinter's physiology. Yeah, as far as, I don't mean he would have made a great sprinter. What I mean is sprinters are built for short explosive bursts. Mike Tyson was built for short explosive bursts. Yeah, and it's in between those bursts that you exploit Mike Tyson. Yeah, if you're an opponent of his, it's in between those bursts. That's why as early as the Pinkland-Thomas fight, Dundee was telling him to go at Mike Tyson. Don't rest with him in the clinches. Don't make those silent agreements, as Teddy Atlas used to call him. Go at him. You don't realize how vulnerable he is in between those bursts. He's trying to rest. Yeah, but the bursts are so ferocious, and he's good at hiding the fact that he's resting, that people didn't dare go at him a lot of the time because they feared the retribution. In the Tony Tucker fight, Tucker's corner were telling him the same. They were saying, push him off, don't grab him, push him off and attack him in between those bursts. Yeah, so Mike Tyson was, again, kind of unusual for a pressure fighter in that he wasn't really a volume puncher. He was a guy that would lay around a lot on the inside and then come out with explosive bursts here and there. And as Ben Odom was saying, that's more taxing when it comes to stamina, is coming out with explosive bursts. When you're throwing slower, more steady punches, it's not as taxing. That's why Joe Frazier was a more slow, steady fighter, more slow, steady, consistent pressure fighter than Mike Tyson. And by the way, I think Mike Tyson would have destroyed Joe Frazier, in a fantasy matchup. But yeah, for whatever it's worth, Frazier threw way more punches and had better stamina. He was smaller too, not in terms of height, but natural body mass. Big up Daniel for the super chat. He says, do you think lanky builds hit the hardest? Tommy Hearns, Wilder, Julian Jackson, etc. I wouldn't describe Julian Jackson as lanky. He was kind of just an athletic build. I wouldn't really describe him as lanky. I'd more so describe Gerald McClellan as lanky. He was lanky. Teddy Atlas and Manny Stewart, I think, both said that they think lanky fighters do hit the hardest, generally. There might be some truth in that. There might be some truth in it, because I'm pretty sure I've heard Teddy Atlas and also Manny Stewart in the past say that lanky guys are normally the hardest punchers. Because if you think about it, a lanky guy, as long as he's athletic, his kinetic chain is going to be smoother. You see what I'm saying? Because when you're heavier, especially if you're a heavyweight, getting up on your toes to deliver that optimum kinetic chain where, the energy flows through the mechanics of the punch, it can be more difficult for a heavier fighter or a fighter who's top heavy or with big heavy arms. Do you know what I mean? Whereas with a lanky guy, the kinetic chain is nice and clean. I'm struggling to describe what I mean, but I know how it looks in my mind. Yeah. So yeah, perhaps it's true that lanky guys, not every lanky guy can hit hard, obviously. But if you think about the greatest punchers of all time, a lot of them have been lanky guys. Yeah. Bob Foster is another one. Bob Foster was a fantastic puncher. And he was skinny as a rake. Skinny as a rake, Bob Foster. He's a tremendous puncher. You got Bob Foster, Tommy Hearns, Gerald McClellan, like you say, Deontay Wilder, Milton McCrory was a very good puncher. A lot of those guys in the early Kronk gym, they were skinny guys. They were great punchers. Evil Uncle Phil says, Frazier was tiny for a heavyweight. Well, by today's standards, yes, but in the 1970s, he wasn't. In the 1970s, it was a pretty normal size heavyweight. As far as his weight. You know, there were guys in the 1970s who didn't even weigh 200 pounds fighting at heavyweight. You know, George Foreman was seen as huge for the 1970s, and he was only like 218. I think he was 218 when he fought Ali. And that was seen as huge back then. Or was he 218? Was he 220 when he fought Ali? He was definitely 218 around that for one of his title fights, either against Ken Norton or Frazier, or maybe the Frazier fight. In fact, let me get Foreman's box rec up. He was between the high 210s and low 220s in his prime. Let me get it up here. Pardon the keyboard noise. Wiki. No, not Wiki. Box rec is what I'm looking for. George Foreman box rec. Let's have a look at his weight. Where are we at? No, he was 224 for... No, that was the Frazier rematch. He was 224. Where are we at? He was 217 for Joe Frazier. Yeah. So George Foreman, for his first fight with Joe Frazier, he weighed 217 pounds. Then for the Joe Roman fight, he was 219. Against Ken Norton, he was 224. Against Ali, he was 220. Okay, he was seen as a huge heavyweight then. Joe Frazier, on the other hand, he was in the low... Yeah, he was just over 200 pounds for a lot of his early championship fights. So, for example, Buster Mathis, that was for the vacant heavyweight title. Frazier was 204, and he was in the low 200 pounds for several fights after that. He was 209 when he fought Bob Foster. I just mentioned Bob Foster before, great light heavyweight champion. 205 when he fought Ali the first time. But he was significantly heavier against George Foreman. 214 against George Foreman. So Frazier was kind of a normal size heavyweight for the time. Yeah. He fought Oscar Bonavena, who was 207 pounds when they fought. Joe Frazier fought people that were below 200 pounds. Plenty of people below 200 pounds. Obviously, the cruiserweight division did not exist back then. Jimmy Ellis, for example. Joe Frazier fought him. Won the WBA title off him in their first fight. Frazier was 205 pounds. Jimmy Ellis was 201 pounds. Jimmy Ellis was Muhammad Ali's sparring partner, one of his sparring partners. And Jimmy Ellis was 201 pounds. So Frazier, for his time, was a normal size heavyweight as far as body mass. Kind of average size heavyweight, but he was obviously short at 5'11". Big up Kayvon Green for the super chat. He says, got to take the wife to see Wicked in exchange for being left alone for tomorrow's fights. I'm out. Big up Kayvon Green every time. NYC in the house, over and out. That's my guy. He's got to suffer Wicked. Is it Wicked 2? Wicked 2. Ben Odom says, who has better stamina, Calzaghe or Usyk? Hard to say, really. I mean, I would suspect Calzaghe just because he's smaller, because generally the smaller you are, smaller fighters generally are going to have better endurance than bigger fighters. So probably Calzaghe. But they both, for their weight class, have got fantastic endurance, right? Tony S says, I think Jake may do better than expected. But it depends what people are expecting. If people are expecting a one-round blowout, then yeah, good chance he will do better than expected. I'm not expecting a one-round blowout from AJ. I'm expecting AJ to come out and have a look and just look to be methodical. He's far more experienced than Jake Paul. I think he's going to come out and let Jake Paul do most of the moving. AJ's the guy with a height and reach. When he wants to throw a shot from long range, he's going to catch Jake Paul, and Jake Paul's going to have to try and leap in to counter. Do you know what I mean? When you've got the experience and you've got the height and reach and the natural size and strength and all that kind of stuff, the smaller guy has to work harder to land his punches than you do. So I think AJ will just take his time, land a hard jab here and there. I think he'll just ease his way into it. I don't think he's going to go out there like some madman and try and knock the guy out in the first round. I don't think he particularly cares about that. I think AJ will look at it like a public sparring session. Like he's just going in there to try a few things out that the Usyk team have taught him. Keep the fundamentals in place, and if he does everything by the book, because of his experience and his size and all that, he should take him out anyway. I don't think AJ is really going to go for it in any kind of major way. I don't think he feels like he has to. And so, in the minds of many people, that'll be Jake Paul doing better than expected. Because, again, people are saying, AJ's going to knock him out in one round. Ade, for example, is saying, if Jake Paul lasts more than 1 or 2 rounds, it's basically a disaster for AJ. I don't really see it that way. It depends how Jake Paul fights. If Jake Paul's literally running around the ring, I don't see it as a disaster. If you've got a guy in there that don't want to fight and he's scared and he's legging it around and he's relatively quick, it can be awkward. So it all depends on what people are expecting. Okay, big up Kieran. He says Yard will KO Benavidez. So you're still a Yard fan then, Kieran? Still a big Yard fan. Lions in the camp? Not kittens? In fact, why was your boy Anthony Yard wearing a bonnet in a recent interview, Kieran? What's that all about? Do you support this bonnet behavior? You got man in the UK, in London, and I'm sure they've gotten it from America, places like Atlanta, running around wearing bonnets now. What's that all about? Do you condone this behavior, Kieran? Yeah, the bonnet boys, bonnet gang. Oh, how the culture has gone downhill. Man out here wearing bonnets. Kittens in the camp. Lions looking camp. Yeah, Lions looking camp. Indeed, Bonnet's in the camp. Tony says, Ade said if AJ loses, he's packing up his things and joining AJ into the wilderness in Nigeria. Yeah, I saw that. That made me laugh. But if AJ loses, he'll be on the first flight back to Nigeria, never to be seen again. And he'll be joining AJ on that flight. Yeah, you made me laugh with that. Speaking of Nigeria, some of these like museums in Europe are being lobbied by the Nigerian government and various groups in Nigeria to return looted artifacts. Some of them have, I think, started returning artifacts that were looted from Nigeria, or Benin as it was then, because the country known as Benin today is only part of the country that was previously Benin. Nigeria is a relatively new name for the country, which came from the colonial times. It was a woman, I think, that was responsible for the etymology of the name Nigeria, because she started calling that area of West Africa the Niger area, named after the Niger River, right? The Niger area. And so eventually, Niger area morphed into Nigeria. That's where it comes from. But yeah, these artifacts from Nigeria, a lot of metal work, very impressive, like metal masks and armor and stuff like that was taken from Nigeria during the colonial period. Very, very impressive stuff. The West Africans, specifically in places like Benin, were very skilled metallurgists. Is that the right word? They're very skilled in metallurgy and like the Middle Ages and stuff like that. So yeah, you see the very impressive like Nigerian metal sculptures and whatnot, which are worth millions, by the way. I think some of those old Nigerian metal sculptures have gone for like millions at auctions in Europe, sold for like millions. And this is over a decade ago, I think. So God knows what they're worth now. We got Ben Oldham, he says, interesting AJ has trimmed his team and closed some of his businesses. I suspect he realized he was carrying too many people. Yeah, I mean, that comes with the territory. Being an African, right? You're going to have a bunch of beggy family members acting like it's your responsibility to save them. Who maybe had no love for you at all before you became famous. As soon as they see you on the TV, they're like, you owe me $1 million. Why? Because I'm related to you somehow. And if you're a people pleaser, that can take a toll on you. We got Ben Oldham for the super chat. Lieutenant Frank says, as someone who's never boxed, I would think AJ fighting Paul is less energy for him than an everyday sparring session. Am I misunderstanding the levels? Behind closed doors it would be, but under the lights with all the expectation, probably not less energy than a sparring session, but not too far off a similar level of energy, I would imagine. Again, looking at AJ's demeanor in that press conference, he seemed far more relaxed than he normally is. And I think that's a measure of his confidence going up against a complete novice. Michael says, AJ saving money, that's all. With this fast of a fight, is AJ trying something no other professional boxer has done? What do you mean, something that no other professional boxer has done? What do you mean by that? No, a bonnet is not like a bandana. A bonnet is something that women wear to preserve their hair. So grannies used to wear bonnets when they would put like rollers in their hair and stuff like that. They're mainly worn by black women now. When they've had their hair done, they go to sleep at night, they put a bonnet on. But now men have started wearing them. So it's a female garment, which looks like something a granny would wear. Because that's who, I always remember growing up, grannies would wear bonnets. You didn't see young women back then. Like back in the 80s, I don't remember young women wearing bonnets. It was like a granny thing. Grannies would wear bonnets because I guess they were popular back in the old days. Yeah, and kind of went out of fashion with younger people. So it was always like a granny thing. Your granny would wear a bonnet. But now these guys are wearing this woman's garment, a bonnet, walking around in the street. Crazy times. Big up June Sports for the super chat. Is Broner's career before Maidana enough for a Hall of Fame considerations? Okay, that's an interesting question. And I say it's an interesting question because there are a lot of people in the Hall of Fame who aren't particularly great fighters. The barrier for entry, or the bar for entry into the Hall of Fame, is not particularly high. So I'm going to offend some people right now. Okay? But I'm going to say RIP first. Ricky Hatton. If Ricky Hatton's in the Hall of Fame, RIP, you can put Broner in the Hall of Fame for what he did prior to the Maidana fights, I think. Probably. I mean, Arturo Gatti had those great fights with Mickey Ward, but Arturo Gatti wasn't a great fighter. He's in the Hall of Fame. Again, RIP Arturo Gatti. So the bar for entry into the Hall of Fame is not that high. So yeah, you could put Broner in there since the bar is not that high. Big up June Sports. Coppen says the Hall of Fame is a baby thing. Rich Franklin says, was Hatton a great fighter? In my opinion, no. He was a good fighter. But great? Was he like one of the greats? Nah. He wasn't one of the greats. He was a good fighter. But I wouldn't say he's a great. Same with Gatti. Gatti was a good fighter. I wouldn't say Gatti was a great fighter at all. He was good. No, not great. And that's an excellent comment from Jupiter's String. It's called the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Talent. Great point. Hall of Fame, not Hall of Talent. Yes, it's about popularity, not just about how good you were. Indeed, Ben Oldham, yes. Great point. Oh yeah, if it's about fame, then I guess Chisora would go in there, right? Jack says, do you have to have been a world champ? Actually, I'm not sure. That might be one of the criteria. That might be one of the criteria. You might have had to have been a world champion. I'm not sure. Because they do have some type of criteria, I think. Did you have to be a world champion to go in there? I'm not sure on that one. Maybe someone in the chat knows. Somehow, whenever I say Hall of Fame, or someone mentions Hall of Fame, I always think of that Styles P lyric. Shout out to anyone who used to listen to Styles P back in the days. My favorite Styles P mixtape was Ghost in the Shell. And there's one track on there where he says, "You want beef? Anybody, just call my name. In the streets, SP in the Hall of Fame." Ben Odom says, why Kobe had to hit it raw. That's Jadakiss, isn't it? From the song Why? With Anthony Hamilton singing the hook. Why they let Terminator win the election? Come on, pay attention. That's another line. Yeah, Jadakiss. Jada, kiss you now, you die now. Why later? Double R and Violator. That's right, SP the Ghost, Panero. Even though Jadakiss is like a technically better rapper than Styles P, I always preferred Styles P. Just had grimy rhymes and a weird mind. I always preferred Styles P, but like Jadakiss is a sharper rhymer, you know, sharper punchlines and all that kind of stuff. But Styles P was just grimy. Oh, wow. Truth Channel says, Google says, no, you don't have to be a world champion to be in the Hall of Fame. Is that what Google AI is saying? Google AI is not infallible. I've seen some things. I've asked the AI on Google some stuff, and the answers in some cases have been way off, like way inaccurate. So you have to take that AI with a pinch of salt. Oh, okay. You just have to be voted by members. You don't have to be a champ. Dominica says Styles P and Billy Dan's got that same sound. Yeah, they're both gutter. Both grimy, coming from a very grimy angle. Here you go, Yonkers finest, Styles P. DMX also from Yonkers. And the funny thing about the locks, right? Did anyone see the interview that Jadakiss did with his dad? Jadakiss's dad snitched on him, right? Well, I say snitched on him. Jadakiss's dad exposed him, and then Jadakiss proceeded to snitch on Styles and Sheik Luch. Did anyone see that interview that Jadakiss did with his dad? He baited him up, yeah. Jadakiss was sat there. Bear in mind, Jadakiss is like a gangster rapper. And his dad sat next to him in this interview, said that he went to private school. Jadakiss went to private school. He grew up in a 2-parent home. He wanted for nothing. He got sent to private school. And his dad just started baiting him up in the interview. And then Jadakiss turned around because he felt embarrassed and said, I don't know why you're getting, why people are laughing at me about it. I think Joe Budden was there. Yeah. And Joe Budden started kind of laughing. And he said, I don't know why people are laughing about it. Styles P and Sheik Luch went to the same school. I was like, oh, damn. So the Locks were private school kids. That's crazy. It's like CB4 out here. What? Yo, Jadakiss' dad has got no chill. Baiting him up for going private school. Growing up in a nice home, 2 parents, wanted for nothing. Crazy. Indeed, evil Uncle Phil says his parents worked hard and he tried lie about struggling. Shame on him. I remember Biggie Smalls' mum doing something similar to him. Because in one of Biggie Smalls' songs, he says that he grew up in a 1-room shack and Christmas missed us. And his mum in this one interview was saying that's a load of rubbish. We didn't grow up in no 1-room shack. We had a pretty big house. And he was wearing polo shirts and all this other stuff when people didn't even know that polo was a designer brand and Christmas never met. Yeah. And she started showing all these pictures of how well off they were. How well off they were growing up. Biggie's mum baited him up. Yeah, she weren't having it. Well, not that Biggie was rich, but he definitely weren't, living in a shack. He definitely didn't come up in a slum. He was from Bed-Stuy. And Bed-Stuy has got some nice, or back then had some nice areas. I'm sure it still does now, Bed-Stuy. Bedford-Stuyvesant. But talking of a rich kid who tried to overcompensate, Teddy Atlas was a rich kid who tried to overcompensate. Teddy Atlas was genuinely well off growing up. His dad was like a really successful doctor. And for some reason, Teddy was compelled to hang around in the grimy areas of New York and start committing crimes and getting into trouble. Yeah. So he was like a rich kid trying to overcompensate. Ben Odom says, who was the rapper in a tutu? Prodigy? Well, yeah, there were pictures of him when he was a very young kid at some kind of dance school or something when he was very young. I don't know whether he was wearing a tutu, but that's the way Jay-Z framed it. Yeah, DMX had a very troubled upbringing. He grew up in like care homes and stuff like that, DMX, so he was very troubled. And I think he was abused as a kid as well, DMX, which explained his drug problem that he had throughout his life. DMX was basically addicted to crack cocaine from quite a young age. But he was, in America, they call them group homes, children's homes. So he was in and out of like children's homes and stuff like that during his upbringing. Yeah, he had a very troubled life, DMX. Very troubled. I was watching some interview the other day. Was it with Tupac's #1 fanboy, his friend Napoleon? I can't remember who it was now, but they were talking about, no, it was Cassidy, the Philly rapper Cassidy. And I think it was with Art of Dialogue, and he was asking Cassidy for some reason whether he thinks DMX was influenced by Tupac and Ja Rule was influenced by Tupac. Obviously they were. He was trying to be all politically correct about it and not just come out and flat out say it. But no, obviously DMX and Ja Rule were massively influenced by Tupac. But funny enough, I always preferred DMX over Tupac. I was never a Tupac fan. Just, something about him didn't resonate with me. I was way more of a fan of DMX, who clearly was influenced by Tupac, but he had a more grimy style. And DMX had a lot more pain in his music, genuine pain in his music than Tupac did. Tupac was an actor at the end of the day, a trained actor. And I'm not saying he had a great upbringing. He had a difficult upbringing, but Tupac didn't grow up in gangs or anything like that. He went to drama school and he was quite effeminate as a teenager. There's a famous interview of him when he was like 17 or 18 years old, and he's extremely effeminate to the point where you would think he's batting for the other team. Maybe that was hanging around in too many, doing too many ballet classes and hanging around in drama school too much. I don't know, but yeah, Tupac grew up as like an artsy kid. He wasn't in gangs or anything like that. That whole gangster thug life stuff came after he, blew up as a rapper. Particularly when he signed to Death Row. That's when he fully got into the gangster character. He was always somewhat rebellious, and wore his heart on his sleeve, Tupac. But he didn't have the same kind of pain in him that DMX had, because DMX had a really rough life, and it came through in his music. So yeah, I was always, ironically enough, even though DMX was massively influenced by Tupac, I always liked DMX music way more than Tupac's music. Shola says, most actors come across that way, but his mom was a revolutionary. Well, I don't know about revolutionary. She was a Black Panther, yes. She was also a drug addict, and I don't know. Would I go as far as describing her as a revolutionary? Big up Lieutenant Frank. Says, what do you think of Prince Patel? Funny. Back in the days, I don't follow him now. I know he does stuff with Tyon Booth on Boxing King Media, but I really don't watch their videos. I watch Boxing King Media videos, but not the Tyon Booth, Prince Patel videos. But back in the day when Prince Patel was trolling Kugan Cassius and all that, it was very funny. But since that time, I really don't pay any attention to him. In fact, the last time I saw him on IFL, he was all pally-pally with Kugan, which was quite disappointing. Yeah, I agree with Evil Uncle Phil. I just found DMX's music more authentic than Tupac's music, to me. More authentic. Tupac was an actor. And you know what? Tupac was a very good actor. He was good. Like, you watch Tupac in Juice, and as someone said there, the Hughes brothers said Tupac changed after he played Bishop from Juice. He basically became Bishop in real life. Tupac could act. Tupac could actually act. He was a trained actor, so he should be able to act, right? But he had a talent for it. He was a good actor. In fact, Tupac might be the best ever rapper that was an actor. You know, like Tupac might have been the best ever actor rapper, if that makes sense. Better actor than Ice Cube. Not that Ice Cube's terrible, but he's pretty one-dimensional, isn't he, as an actor, Ice Cube? But Tupac, yeah, he might have been the best actor there's ever been from the rap world. LL Cool J is okay, but I don't think he was a good actor as Tupac. I guess he's okay. Lord Jamar, he's done some acting over the years. Lord Jamar was in Oz. You know the HBO prison drama Oz? Lord Jamar was in that. June Sport says Idris Elba. But Idris Elba's not really primarily a rapper. I mean someone that's known as being a rapper, like a famous rapper, and then they become an actor. I can't think of any of them that have been as good an actor as Tupac was. Nah, man. Will Smith, nah, man. I mean, Will Smith, obviously, because he's had a much longer career in acting than Tupac. I don't think Will Smith is a good actor. The only thing I've ever liked Will Smith in was The Fresh Prince. That's it. I've never liked him in anything else, ever. I've never liked Will Smith in... But hey, it's all subjective, innit? But personally, I've never liked Will Smith. If I know Will Smith is in a movie, I'll avoid the movie. Whereas Tupac was actually good. Tupac was good as an actor. Someone says 50 Cent is decent. 50 Cent is terrible. But then again, I haven't seen everything 50 Cent's been in. But for example, the other day I watched Get Rich or Die Trying for the first time from start to finish. And 50 Cent in Get Rich or Die Trying was cringingly bad. Oh, he was terrible in that movie. Anyone seen Get Rich or Die Trying? God, how bad was 50 Cent in that? Terrible. Absolutely terrible. So corny as well. Super corny in that movie. Terrible. Shola says he didn't like Will Smith and Ali. Hell no. To me, that was like sacrilegious. He could never do a good Ali. Didn't have the masculinity to do a good Ali. I didn't like him at all. I don't like Will Smith in anything other than The Fresh Prince. That's it. Wow, 50 Cent's gonna be in the new Street Fighter movie. Is that right? Who's gonna play Balrog? Oh, okay, yeah, he's playing Balrog. He's playing Balrog. Someone says Blanca. Derek Chisora should play Blanca. I think Spencer Fearon said that about Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora should play Blanca. I can literally see that. He's built like Blanca. That would be a laugh out loud moment. Derek Chisora as Blanca would be a laugh out loud moment. That's right. Evil Uncle Phil said he would definitely do it if the money was right as well. Yo, he blatantly would do it. Yo. Usyk is M. Bison. I could see that, you know. I could actually see Usyk as M. Bison. He's got the eyes for it. Yeah, I can see Usyk doing M. Bison. I love a lot of those AI Street Fighter videos. I actually binge watch those Street Fighter AI videos. Any of you guys ever watched them? Where they do like realistic renditions of the various Street Fighter characters with AI. Yeah, that Gomez Adams was terrible as M. Bison. That Street Fighter movie with Van Damme is one of the worst movies to have ever existed. That was an abomination, that movie. Shocking. You know what I miss about the old school Street? I remember watching a documentary, right? Yeah, Kylie Minogue was in that Street Fighter movie as well. That's right, she was. I remember watching a documentary about the creation of Street Fighter 2. And I think it might have been the lead developer was instructing his team on what he wanted, because they were obviously creating all these new characters and creating all the special moves. And he said, if the special move can make me laugh, then it stays in the game. If the special move doesn't make me laugh, we might remove it. That doesn't seem to exist in fighting games anymore, the humor that they used to have. That's what made Street Fighter so iconic, because the moves were so outrageously funny and ridiculous. People underestimate the power of humor. I will never back down on this particular point, right? The movie Black Panther, when it came out, it was like, oh wow, it's like the first, black superhero movie in the Marvel age. Black people were all excited about it. The movie was okay, but nothing special. And I said it could have been so much better and so much more memorable and iconic if they'd put a load of African actors in there. Because most of the actors weren't Africans. They were like Black Americans or Caribbeans playing Africans. Yeah, there's only a couple of Africans in there. And one of them, and I suggested putting Nollywood actors in there. Yeah, I suggested the dad. You know when T'Challa goes into that dream state and he starts talking to his dad who's dead, the ancestor, his dad. I said that they should have made the dad Mr. Ibu. You know Mr. Ibu from Nollywood, the comedy actor? And every black person, including British Nigerians, always shut it down. No way, they should no way put Nigerian actors in there. Then the thing would be a farce. It'd just be comedy, you'd just be laughing. Yeah, that's the point. That's the flipping point. That's why a lot of the movies from back in the 80s, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, movies that are seen as iconic today, that's what part of the reason they were so iconic, because it was funny. Yeah, there was like farcical stuff in there that made you laugh and makes you remember it and look back upon it with fun memories. Nowadays, everyone thinks they're too cool for school. When you try and be too cool, guess what? You end up being boring. Yeah? Everyone's trying to be too cool and slick and nah, bro. Introduce some comedy into the equation. Yeah? That's what makes things memorable. When you put comedy in there, not just trying to be so cool and like, nah, man. People think this generation lacks humor. They think they're too cool for school. If they ever do a black superhero Marvel movie again, they need to, if they ever go back to Wakanda, I didn't see the follow-up. It just looked trash to me, some feminist trash. If they ever did like a remake, a reboot of Black Panther, put Nollywood actors in there. I want to see African actors with authentic African accents, African humor, and all that. That's what I want to see in there. Yeah, it will make it way more memorable in the long run. Because now, like, no one even thinks about Black Panther. It was a flash in the pan movie. You wouldn't even want to go watch it again. Whereas if you put some Nollywood guys in there, imagine if you put Aki and Pawpaw in there. Mr. Ibu in there. I'm not saying they had to be main characters, but they could have been like supporting characters that popped up here and there for a bit of comic relief. It would have made it far more memorable. Yes. I don't know why it was just full of black Americans, man. And it's supposed to be set in Africa. I want to see real Africans in there. And you got all this talent in Nollywood. Why not recruit it? It'll be a lot cheaper than the American talent anyway. Yeah, that's right, linkage. M. Bison was originally Balrog, but they swapped the names, but it sounded too similar to Mike Tyson. Yeah. And also, M. Bison was originally Vega. And Balrog was originally... The character Vega today was originally Balrog. And the character that's M. Bison today was originally Vega. And the boxer was M. Bison. That's right. They swapped it all around. Yeah, they should have done. Mr. Ibu passed away recently. One of my favorite Nollywood actors, Mr. Ibu. Hilarious. Mr. Ibu and Sam Loco. And obviously Paw Paw. Those are probably my three favorite Nollywood actors. Paw Paw, Mr. Ibu, and Sam Loco. I also like Osuofia. Am I pronouncing it right? Osuofia. He's not as funny as the other three, but he's still quite funny. Osuofia. That guy. There you go, Ben Odom. Iconic films, Friday, Coming to America, Boomerang, Car Wash, Trading Places. I mean, they were out and out comedies, and I guess a Marvel movie is not a flat out comedy, but there's a big comedy element in a lot of the Marvel movies. But not in Black Panther. They should have put that in there, and it would have come naturally from Nollywood actors. Yeah, you could have put Ngannou in Black Panther, but can he act? Maybe as like a background character, you could have put him in there. Yeah, I just mentioned Osuofia. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of his movies. I used to like Osuofia with Sam Loco. He did a lot of movies with Sam Loco. I forget which movie it is with Osuofia and Sam Loco, where they're thieves. And they like rip off, Osuofia rips off this guy that he's working for, played by Bruno. I always forget the guy's surname. There's another famous deceased Nollywood actor called Bruno something. And Osuofia rips him off, and then Sam Loco goes back there not realizing his friend has ripped this guy off, and he gets accosted, and they call the police. That scene is jokes. NSGS says they probably don't think Nollywood would have appealed to Western or Chinese audiences. But the thing is, Black Panther was quite overtly marketed towards the black community. So if the black community aren't accepting African actors, then the black community is really lost then, aren't they? Especially when the movie is literally set in Africa. I mean... Yeah, that's, see, just in general, what grinds my gears is when they get people to do foreign accents in movies when you could just as easily get somebody who's from that country. Unless they do a really good job at it, it really grinds my gears. So for example, if anyone's seen the movie Black Hawk Down, Black Hawk Down is about an incident, I think it was in the 1990s, where an American Black Hawk military helicopter was shot down in Mogadishu in Somalia, right? And then the American troops went in to rescue the survivors of the helicopter crash. In the movie, which was directed by Ridley Scott, damn near the entire cast is British. There's a couple of American actors in there, but most of them are British. And when I was watching that movie, the British accent keeps seeping through constantly from the actors who are supposed to be playing American characters. It's just so annoying. It grinds my gears, man. Why not just get American actors instead of getting all these British actors to play Americans when the accents are dodgy like that? I don't like it. It always used to baffle me that people would big up Idris Elba in The Wire, because his accent in The Wire was terrible. It was terrible, bro. I'm telling you. Idris Elba's accent in The Wire was terrible. Oh my God, it was terrible. And the other guy, there's another British guy in The Wire who played a policeman. His American accent was terrible as well. God damn it all, that was so bad. Both of them were doing my head in The Wire. Elba and the other British guy. McNulty, yeah, him. Oh, his British accent was coming through all the time and he's supposed to be an American cop. Why do it? Why do it? Han says, it's a lot worse the other way around though. I have to bring up Denzel Washington in Queen and Country. That's a fact. Yes, it's usually worse the other way around. Denzel Washington in Queen and Country was, comical. Absolutely comical in terms of the British accent. That was crazy. Anyone who hasn't seen that, please look it up on YouTube. Denzel Washington in Queen and Country. That was one of the wildest attempts of a British accent in cinema history. That was wild. Yo, that was wild, bro. Yo. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Ben Odom says, who's the most successful black British male actor? Maybe Idris Elba, right? Is it Idris Elba? It might be Idris Elba. Oh, the reggae singer. You're talking about Ninja Man. Yeah, Ninja Man's English accent was crazy too. I forget the name of that movie, but that was crazy. Ninja Man is just a whole meme by himself. Hilarious. Unintentionally so. But yeah, that movie where basically Ninja Man turns up to some business pretending to be a British guy so he can be allowed in. And as soon as he's allowed in, he pulls out his strap and, sticks the place up. But when he's doing his British accent outside, it's crazy, bro. Shout out to the Manny Fresh one. He says, what's the best way to start a successful business? What are the biggest lessons and biggest pitfalls to avoid? It's a really broad question, so it's difficult to answer. Because there are so many different types of businesses. All I can tell you from my personal experience is that I didn't, how can I put this? The best advice I would give, right, is since the internet allows you to have online businesses and whatnot, maybe start the business part-time rather than quitting everything and going headlong into the business. Unless you're really, really confident about it, start the business as a part-time hustle, as a side hustle, yeah? If it's viable as a side hustle, you should be able to scale it up. So that's the advice I would give. Because obviously most businesses fail. So start something as a side hustle. Because a lot of successful businesses start out exactly that way, as a side hustle. Mine did. Mine started out as a side hustle, which turned into a business. So from my personal experience and what I've observed as well, that's the advice I would give you. Yeah. See if it can work as a side hustle first. If it does, you'll be able to scale it up. So big up the Manny Fresh one. I hope that advice helps. So among the British actors that do the best American accent, I think probably the British actor with the best American accent maybe ever would be Christian Bale. Christian Bale's American accent in most movies is absolutely seamless. It's seamless. Christian Bale's American accent is so good that I've seen loads of interviews with Christian Bale where he's talking in his British accent and it's full of shocked Americans in the comments. Yeah. So Christian Bale's American accent, fantastic. Yeah, that's right, Hands of Steel. Don Cheadle in Ocean's 11, yeah, the Dick Van Dyke Cockney was terrible. Oh wow, June Sports didn't realize. See, there you go. June Sports, Rich Franklin didn't realize Christian Bale is British. Yeah, Christian Bale British. His accent, fantastic. He even looks like one of those Ivy League American guys, doesn't he? He even has like an American Ivy League look about him. Yeah, he looks like a Chad. Yeah, he looks like a Chad. He's British. NSGS says Bale got elite genetics in his prime. Yeah, I've never liked Stephen Graham as an actor. A lot of people think he's great, but I've never liked him. He's the only character that kind of irritated me in Gangs of New York. And Gangs of New York is one of my favorite movies of all time, but Stephen Graham in that movie just irritated me somehow. I thought everyone else was great. Yeah, that's true. Hugh Jackman's American accent is very good, and Australian actors in general tend to do the American accent a bit better. Yeah, I probably agree with that. You know, it's so funny when it comes to accents. Obviously, I live in Africa now, and several times I've been asked if I'm American. You know, it's so weird the way that non-native English speakers perceive British and American accents. They actually find it difficult to tell the difference between certain British accents. If it's a posh British accent, they can tell the difference. Yeah. But if it's like a London accent or something, they find it difficult to tell the difference between like a London accent and an American accent. A lot of people in Africa, yeah, I'm telling you, it's weird to me because it sounds massively different to our ears, right? But in Africa, a lot of people can't tell the difference between my accent and an American accent. Very strange. Ben Odom says, who is the Australian actor from Neighbours in the 80s who's done so many films in Hollywood? I'm not sure. Yeah, there are so many British accents, for sure. And there are certain British accents which they would presumably not mistake for American. But when it comes to like London accents, especially like a black London accent, a lot of people in Africa can't tell the difference between that and an American accent somehow. Oh wow, NJ says, my American wife thought you was American at first when she heard you. Guy Pearce. Was Guy Pearce in Neighbours? For real? Guy Pearce was in Neighbours. Yeah, Memento was a brilliant movie. Was that Chris Nolan's first ever movie? Memento? Definitely one of his early movies, right? Oh, damn. Wow, Guy Pearce was in Neighbours. The Neighbours characters I remember were like Harold Bishop, Lou, the Kennedys. I forget the Kennedys' names. There was the Dr. Kennedy who had an affair and his wife. Annalise, Toady, and Stonefish. Madge, yeah, I remember Madge. That's right. Toady and Stonefish. They were like the bad boys. Oh, the edgy ones, Toady and Stonefish. Who are the kids of the Kennedys in Neighbours? Yeah, Bouncer was the dog. There you go. Who are the kids of the Kennedys? I forget their names. Oh wow, Toady left like a year ago. So Toady must be a teacher by now or something. He's old and gray at this point. Yeah, and the mad thing is, Neighbours, at least initially, was far more popular in the UK than it was in Australia. As I understand it, Neighbours wasn't originally that popular in Australia at all, but it became a massive hit in the UK, and subsequent to that, it started becoming more popular in Australia as well. Yeah, obviously, yeah, the Minogues were in Danny Minogue and that, Jason Donovan, yeah, there you go. Kylie and Danny were both in Neighbours, right? And Jason Donovan. Evil Uncle Phil says, Baltimore people pronounce some words similar to people from London. Do they? I haven't noticed that. I'm not saying you're wrong, I just haven't noticed it. So for example, Hasim Rahman is from Baltimore. I don't recall him saying anything that sounded like it was similar to a British accent, and the same with Javonta Davis. Yeah, Stank Davis. There you go. There you go, Ben Odom. 5:30 in the evening, Home and Away was at 6, the good old days. Yeah. Neighbours followed by Home and Away. Yeah, they staggered it deliberately so you could watch both so they wouldn't clash, because Neighbours, I think, was on BBC or BBC Two, and Home and Away was it Channel 4? But Home and Away was like the ugly stepchild. Neighbours was way more popular. Had a much better theme tune, you know? I can't even remember the theme tune for Home and Away. Fernie G says, what prompted the move to Africa? Weather, cost of living, and yeah, weather, cost of living, and culture. Ren and Stimpy is one of the weirdest cartoons ever. I used to watch it just because it was so different, you know? But you go back and watch Ren and Stimpy now and you're like, who the hell made this cartoon? And why were they showing it to kids? Do you know what I mean? Like, Ren and Stimpy's real disturbing, bro. I don't know who was behind that. How's the safety in Africa? Africa's a massive continent, so depends on what country you're in and whereabouts in the country you're staying. Safety varies massively from country to country, depends which country you're in. The country I'm in, it's relatively safe. I'd say it's safer than most big cities in the United States where I'm staying. Not as safe as other cities in the West, but, you know, definitely safer than somewhere like Chicago. A lot safer than that. A lot safer than New Orleans. Yeah, Chirac. A lot safer than Chirac. Yeah, South Africa is extremely dangerous. Uh, the murder rate in South Africa is off the scale. That's one of the reasons I chose not to move there, because South Africa is very dangerous. You're looking for safety in Africa? Yeah, South Africa, you need to miss that place. Yeah, I remember Family Affairs. That was horrible. That was like an attempt at a home and away type, it was like a British attempt at a home and away type soap opera, Family Affair. It was horrible. I remember one of the storylines, the early storylines in Family Affairs, was that black school kid who was having an affair with his ugly teacher. That was such a bad look. There was some teacher that he was having, and she was a dead thing. She was dead. She wasn't a hot teacher or anything. And this kid was having like this obsessive affair with the school teacher. I think, was he called Benji? He's a black school kid. I think he might have been called Benji. Truth Channel says, accents blow my mind. How is it even possible that people sound so different in close proximity? It's crazy. Well, Britain is exhibit A for that, isn't it? Because accents in Britain are far more different than accents in America. Yeah. In close proximity, you can have massively different accents in Britain. And that obviously is owing to the fact that Britain is a much older nation than America, right? So there's been a lot more time for communities to form. And obviously in centuries gone by, people rarely would leave their own community. They'd live their entire life in that community, in their village or their town. They wouldn't go anywhere. And so that allowed these accents, which are very different from one another, to form. Because people were staying put for centuries. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't that much cross-pollination. People weren't traveling much from one town to another in Britain. So you get these very, very distinct accents that have developed over the centuries, regional accents. Did I watch Sunset Beach? No. But it was very popular with girls in my college. They all used to skip class to watch Sunset Beach in a common room. That was right around the time when Jerry Springer launched in the UK. It was already going on in America, the Jerry Springer show, but they introduced it in the UK around the time when they started showing Sunset Beach. So those two shows caused people to skip class in my college and go to the common room. Jerry Springer and Sunset Beach. Yeah, Jerry. Jerry Springer was hilarious, bro. And that coincided with like the Attitude Era in WWE. So it was all part of like the same shift in culture, you know? You had the Attitude Era in WWE. You had Jerry Springer on daytime television. Yeah, Ricky Lake. Ricky Lake was cool. Ricky Lake was cool. Before Springer, you had the likes of Geraldo. Geraldo's terrible. Dear old. He's just an awful human being, Geraldo. Geraldo, Donahue. And that then went into the Ricky Lakes and the Jerry Springers. Howard Stern, obviously, the shock jock, Howard Stern. So yeah, right around that time, you had Howard Stern, Jerry Springer, WWE Attitude Era, Sally Jesse Raphael, yeah, with the big glasses. Yeah, you are not the father. Judge Judy, yeah. Springer was great entertainment. Even though a lot of the guests after a while were blatantly fake, but it was still jokes. I remember there was a time when they brought like the KKK Grand Master or whatever he was, or the Grand Dragon. And he started making threats about Jerry because obviously Jerry was Jewish. And Jerry went up there to punch the Grand Dragon in the face. The Grand Wizard. There you go, the Grand Wizard. And there was that one security guy, Steve. Remember that? Steve. Whenever Steve would go on there to kick someone off the stage, the crowd starts shouting, Steve. Yo. Yeah, Barhead Steve, that's the one. Steve thought he was a bad man too. Steve started feeling himself after a while. Man thought he was a real bad man. In fact, I remember on a Redman album, Redman did a Jerry Springer skit. And in the skit, where Redman was playing a Jerry Springer contestant, he literally he's like, Steve, you better stay back there, Steve. He like cocks his gun. I think that might have been on the Malpractice album. Yeah, man started thinking he was Goldberg. Steve got a little gassed. Yeah, I never liked Jeremy Kyle. Jeremy Kyle's just such a despicable character. For me, those talk shows only work if the host is likable or entertaining, and Jeremy Kyle's just a slime ball, just horrible. The Manny Fresh says, from a technical point of view, which rapper is better, Redman or Method Man? I'd probably say Method Man is a better technical rapper. Yeah, I'd probably say Method Man's a better technical rapper. But Redman's more fun to listen to for me. Like, if you go listen to that first Blackout album, Redman had all the most memorable verses and all the most memorable lines. For me, anyway. Now, when me and my boys used to listen to that album, we'd be driving around. It was the Redman bars that got us hype, not the Method Man bars. Do you know what I mean? The Redman's just more entertaining. And it's funny, you know, it might have been after Muddy Waters, Doc's the name, that album. That's when Redman started portraying himself as a cartoon character. And his voice literally sounds like a cartoon character voice. So it's very fitting that he started then portraying himself as this cartoon character. Yeah, Jenny Jones. I remember Jenny Jones. That reminded me of a line from No Pigeons. Any of you guys remember Sporty Thieves, No Pigeons? It was like a remix of No Scrubs by a rap group called Sporty Thieves. And one of the lines is, "You hoes want to take over? Get some cash and a Jenny Jones makeover." Something like that. There you go. You know the line. Jenny Jones makeover. Yeah. You know the line. How far into the live are we? We're like 3 hours in or something, I think. 3 hours? Over 3 hours in. Yeah, back in the days, they used to have those men versus women battles in music. You guys remember that? I want to say No Scrubs and then the reply No Pigeons. That was the first men versus women battle, men versus women battle in rap and R&B that I can remember. Years later, there was that, was he a Puerto Rican guy or something that sang the song I Don't Want You Back? You guys remember that one? And then his ex-girlfriend supposedly made a reply tune dissing him. In the chorus, he was like, "F you, you ho, I don't want you back." Yeah. And then she did the reply. Activistic Intellect says, have you watched any Zambian TV? Do they have those funny African films with terrible acting? I haven't actually watched any Zambian TV, to be honest, since I've been here. Literally zero. Bear in mind, I don't watch any TV, or I wasn't watching any TV when I was living in the West for decades, right? I watched a little bit of Costa Rican TV, because that was quite funny. I haven't actually watched any Zambian TV at all, none. There is 2 TVs here in the house, but I haven't actually watched any Zambian TV. Truthfully, Zambians are not that funny. Yeah? Like some African nationalities are really funny, just unintentionally and naturally funny. Zambians aren't really that funny. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not really funny people like that. Ugandans are flipping hilarious. Like Ugandans are so flipping funny, it's ridiculous. And the world is starting to recognize that now, thanks to Simon Kagwangala, Pastor Sempa, and many others, because there are loads of other Ugandan, I mean, even the Ugandan president, Museveni, is hilarious. Yeah? Museveni, the Ugandan president, is hilarious. If you ever see clips of this guy on like Instagram, he's just unintentionally hilarious all the time. Like, and I've known Ugandans for a long time. I dated Ugandan girls. Ugandans are flipping hilarious. They've got to be up there in the top 2 funniest African nationalities. Nigerians are the others, of course. Yeah, top 2's got to be Nigeria and Uganda. Are both hilarious. Ben Oldham says, Hatman, did you ever go to Hanover Grand back in the days in 10 rooms? Hanover Grand, yes. 10 rooms, no. I never went to 10 rooms. Rich Franklin says, Nigerians are funny, but I think they overdo it now. Well, most of the funny Nigerians are in real life now, because the Nigerian movies are not funny anymore. The old school Nigerian actors have all passed away. Also, Ofi is still alive. But the guys that he used to act with, Mr. Ibu, Sam Loco, they passed away. Bruno's passed away. Aki and Pawpaw are still alive, but they're... Like, Pawpaw, he's not funny anymore. He takes himself too seriously now. You ever seen Pawpaw in interviews? He's like really uppity and, you know what I mean? So Aki and Pawpaw are washed now. They're not funny no more. Aki, especially Pawpaw. Aki is a bit more funny still. Whereas Pawpaw used to be more funny when they were young. But yeah, Nollywood is not funny like it used to be, but it's just Nigerian people in real life that are funny. Nigerians in real life are funny. Yeah, Pawpaw vexed now. I don't know what's going on with Paw. Yeah, that's exactly what he's like. In interviews, he just comes across as vexed and bitter or something. Maybe because he's a midget, right? Can't be easy being a midget. But still. Yeah, freshy Indians and Pakistanis are hilarious. Did anyone see that clip that was doing the rounds on social media recently? Of, there's like a Pakistani guy who is talking to the police, and he's been filmed by what sounds like a Caribbean guy, you know, British Caribbean guy. And there's been some kind of like road rage incident, and the police are mediating. And the freshy Pakistani guy is like really upset. And he goes to the policeman. He told me to suck my mother. He told me to suck. He's like trying to snitch, thinking that the police will somehow arrest him because he told him to suck his mother. That clip is jokes. And the police are like, yeah, but that's not an arrestable offense. That's irrelevant. That's not an arrestable offense. He told me to suck my mother. Yo. The guy was traumatized. Yo, if you ain't seen that clip, look it up, bro. That was comedy. Yeah, those freshy Pakistanis, when they get angry, it is so funny. The kind of cusses they come out with and stuff like that is hilarious. When I was doing security back in the days, retail security, I used to work with a load of freshy guys from Pakistan, and trust me, it was comedy from start to finish on every shift. Trust me, we were creasing at them, man. Creasing at the freshies. The funniest freshie I ever worked with was an Indian guy, yeah? And this Indian guy, I swear to God, this Indian freshie I used to work with was damn near exactly like Taj from Van Wilder's Party Liaison. Any of you guys seen Van Wilder's Party Liaison? a movie from back in the days with the actor from Deadpool. What's the actor from Deadpool? Ryan Reynolds, yeah? Ryan Reynolds did a comedy back in the days called Van Wilder's Party Liaison. And there's a character in there called Taj. I'm telling you, I worked with a real life version of Taj when I was doing security. You cannot imagine how funny it was. You cannot imagine. I'm telling you, he was that square and the accent and everything was crazy. His whole worldview was hilarious. God bless him. Do you know what I mean? Oh, wild times. There's that one scene in Van Wilder where they meet Taj for the first time. They're auditioning for like a helper or something. And Taj starts coming out of his shell and revealing how like sexually repressed he is. He starts talking about, I want to park the porpoise, you know, I want to vax it. Crazy. In fact, I think I used a GIF one time of Taj in one of my lives where Taj is going, vax it. I want to take it through the car wash, you know, take it through the car wash and get it vaxxed, you know, vax it. Classic scene. Indians are funny, like unintentionally funny, innit? Just in general. Indians are so unintentionally funny. They don't think they're funny, right? But we think they're hilarious. Yeah, Briggs trolling was legendary. That whole era where Briggs was trolling Vladimir. Maybe the best trolling in boxing history. All right, peeps. Let's shop. Stop, drop, shut them down, open up shop. Yeah, we'll shut this one down. Shout out to everyone who joined the conversation. Special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. They were Matt Borgerson, Betting Related, High Roll Protagonist, Laughing in the Abyss, Dr. Blick, Matt Borgerson, Daniel, Joshua, Cobra, Josh Leddy, Anthony Palmer, Kayvon Green, Agni, Gaz, Atavistic Intellect, NSGS. Cobra, I think I've already mentioned him. Ben Odom, of course. Daniel Xbox. June Sports 13, big up Lieutenant Frank. And the Manny Fresh. So special shout out to all of you guys who donated via Super Chat. And everyone else who joined the conversation. It's been a blast as always. Until next time, take care, be good. I'll catch you on the other side. I'm out.